Hey, everybody. That's right, we are back, and welcome to the Canary Cry News Talk live stream pre-stream. The first comment of the day award goes to Ebony Blaze over on Twitch. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And to the rest of you, better luck next time. But we're just getting ready to get started on the show here. But before we do, if you're here now, make sure to hit that like button, baby, and share it out. Put it out on your social media or something. Spread the word, because we're back. We're back in action. We survived Thanksgiving. We're happy that most of you did as well. But we got some great stories for you today. So make sure to stay tuned. Get a snack. Get a sip of water. Stay hydrated. It's just generally good advice. Okay, folks. So here we go. We're going to get started. No new announcements. So strap on in. Let's go.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is December 2nd, 2020. This is episode 271, and today, the Splinternet Wars. That's right, and I'm back, baby. I'm your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz. Welcome to the podcast where we love Jesus, we love you, learning to love ourselves, and we're praying for our enemies who are closing in with their great resex Splinternet pandemic.
Wow. Oh, no. They just keep getting closer and closer. Well, I'm happy to be back. This was a wild Thanksgiving season, Gonzo.
Yeah, apparently
it was eventful.
You got cryogenically frozen.
Yes, that was my CIA cover story.
Oh, okay.
Which you executed perfectly.
Thank you.
But just to honor our listeners and our viewers who, I really don't like missing shows. But believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, I do not like missing shows. And this one was, I was totally planning on being back from Thanksgiving on Monday. But I was in I was stranded. I was stranded in basically the middle of nowhere, and there was nothing I could do about it. Just nothing at all. There was a lot of crisis management. There was a lot of people who did not like me in their territory, so it was very difficult to find help. The institutions broke down. I truly felt like I was the king of the apocalypse, building my empire from scratch. But I made it back. I made it back yesterday, which was 3 days. I was stranded for 3 days. So it was a little bit longer than I expected. But otherwise, it was fine. Thanksgiving was fine. It was just fine. How about yours?
It was fine, yeah. Good time with family and all that. But yeah, I was concerned for you because you told me everything broke down, you're stuck out there, and we had planned to go live. I was ready to go, and we were thinking maybe you'd call in, but no luck.
Things were looking good at first because I got stranded on Saturday, and the show was on Monday, so I thought I could make it work, but it just didn't work. It did not work out. And worst of all, I'm fine giving this away. It was in California. I was visiting family in California, and before I left, I just didn't want to go. Mostly just because I didn't want to go to California. It sounded like a mess. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And of course, it was pretty much as bad as I could have expected. So I was stranded in California for 3 extra days, which I was very uncomfortable with. I did have sort of moments where I was like, oh no, They're going to get me. They're going to put me in a California FEMA camp, and I'm going to just be disappeared.
Yeah, well, especially since you were out in the netherworld of California. California is heavily populated up north, heavily populated down south, but there's like a great,
it's got a lot of deserted areas.
Yes, quite literally.
I was certainly in one of them, which just made it that much easier to stay stranded. But
sure,
that's all in the past. I'm here. I'm back. I'm happy to be back. I see you, everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for the warm welcome back to my own podcast. I appreciate it. So,
cool.
Anyways, I heard you did a pretty good job on the show without me, though.
I was missing you because I just have to keep talking. You can't stop talking for about two hours plus.
Yeah.
So I was at the parts where I was ready for you to jump in. I was like, oh, I have to keep going. That was rough.
That was
but
revenge for baby week.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't.
It's not
too hard for me because I'm used to doing a little bit of that with the normal type of Face Like the Sun videos.
Yes. Right.
But it is a little different when you get into a rhythm.
And when it's live too.
Yeah, when you're live too.
When it's not live, you can edit out all the weird things and the awkward pauses.
Babies.
Yes.
Bothering you.
Live. There's
that's
forgiveness.
Those watching live caught it, but basically my 3-year-old snuck under the desk the first minute of the show, and and she just popped her head out from underneath the desk, right as I was in the middle of going live talking to everybody. And it was it started off pretty disastrous even without you there. It was I had my own sort of disaster control at the beginning. And I had to leave the mic on for about a minute of nothing as I walked out and I ran downstairs. Yeah, it was a
whole event, not just a funny moment.
No, it was a whole thing. So yeah, we all have our problems, our challenges of doing podcasts.
Imagine that 2020. We should expect disasters now, but it still catches us by surprise sometimes.
We're ready for a great brand reset.
Oh,
yeah. How about it?
Okay.
What do you think?
We'll need to talk to the producers, but it is about that time.
Yeah.
But speaking of branding and the Great Reset, did you have any updates on the election that we need to pay attention to?
Yeah, real quick.
And so my question is very direct. Is voting by mail secure? No.
So we've had the hearings the last few days, Arizona, Michigan. There's and a lot of it is, we were talking a few weeks ago, hey, just show us the evidence.
Right.
And there are sworn affidavits. There's a lot of evidence, but it appears the mainstream media is not covering any of it. And on platforms like Twitter, you have a lot of people just sitting there going, oh, it's all dismissed because no mainstream media picks up on it. And I think Trump is he's starting to get pretty annoyed with the whole situation. He's pushing OAN and a couple other outlets that are carrying it. But one of the things he went into the last few days, this is thehill.com. Trump threatens to veto defense bill over tech liability shield. And this is about Section 230 in the, the Internet Protection Act. And do you know about Section 230? Have we talked about Section 230?
Yeah, we've mentioned it plenty of times. This is the piece of legislation that protects social media companies from being considered publishers.
Publishers, that's right. Yeah. So for those of you watching on screen, I have it up here. And the part in question in Section 230, it's the protection for private blocking and screening of offensive material. The part in question is Section C, protection for Good Samaritan blocking and screening of offensive material. And basically, what it comes down to is, because a lot of people are kind of misunderstanding what this is. Some people are saying, oh, if Trump eliminates Section 230, then Twitter can ban him. And it's like, well, kind of, but the thing that's happening right now is that because of Section 230, I saw a few. I did a whole deep dive on it over the weekend, and there's like a TED talk with a lady talking about we have to uphold 230. It's our free speech. It's basically like the Constitution of the internet. It protects free speech, all this kind of stuff. And yes, on one hand, that's true. And platforms aren't responsible, like Twitter, Facebook. They're not like 100% responsible for everything everyone says on the platform. And that makes sense.
It's what allows them to have people post horrible things on their website without them being liable for it.
Right. But that's a separate issue from when they start tagging on to posts like this information is disputed, like the whole thing that's happening. Yeah, the fact checking on every single Trump tweet in the last month, and suspending the the account of the press secretary, stuff for sharing the New York Post article, stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff is going into the realm of being an editor, being a publisher, making these decisions. And so when that point is mentioned, people always say, I've seen a lot of social media people say, well, Twitter's a private company. They can do whatever they want. And it's like, no, they can't. And the prime example is that Sandman kid. Remember that Sandman kid that was there was a video that went viral of him facing off, kind of smirking at a Native Indian guy playing a drum in his face. And he sued all these news agencies because
he won a bunch of money.
He won a bunch of money, like millions of dollars.
Yeah, I think 23 million was what I last saw.
Something like that. And he sued a bunch of people, NBC, ABC, CNN, all these guys. And they're all private companies that can publish, they can do whatever they want. Well, no, they can't. And that's kind of the point I think that Trump's trying to make. But
well, I mean, it's as simple as, tons of companies are private companies.
Yeah.
Say you have a mechanic shop and you own a mechanic shop, you can't suddenly start selling burgers just because you're a private company.
Right.
There's licensing, there's, all sorts of reasons why. Well, it's a private company. It doesn't mean anything. There's still laws on private companies. And, it's also similar to if a baker doesn't want to bake you a cake.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's a private company.
Such innocent times.
They must bake the cake. The government says so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Those seem like such innocent times compared to now.
I know. Remember when that was the biggest story of the year? Was somebody, not even that somebody baked a cake. It's somebody didn't bake a cake. National headlines.
Yeah. And if anybody's curious, Justice, I think it's Thomas Roberts, or no, Justice Thomas, wrote a whole thing on why he thinks Section 230 should be amended and fixed to prevent platforms like Twitter from getting away with this sort of it is censorship, and it's they're hiding behind it right now, but theoretically, because they'll say, oh, Twitter's not a news agency. Well, they have an entire news section. They editorialize what news people see, and that's why it's pretty crazy right now when you go to the U.S. elections tab in the your Twitter news feed, and none of the news feed includes any of the stuff from the hearings, from the court documents that have been submitted, the Kraken. None of that stuff is there, and it's just interesting to watch the split happening of the truth. The internet is literally splitting, and that's part of the discussion here with the Splinternet.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting. I don't know if you mentioned it on your solo episode on Monday, but part of the thing that's going on with the mainstream media reporting on it is there are lots of cases being brought up in courts all around the country. A lot of them are getting dismissed, and the the media is portraying that as, oh, see, there's no evidence. They tried to make a court case, but there's no evidence. Well, that's not true. Like you said, there's a lot of evidence, but they're not being allowed to bring the evidence because in the court proceedings, they're having issues with standing. And as I understand it, I'm no legal expert, but the way that I've heard it explained is, you can't just bring a lawsuit against anybody. Even if somebody is doing something wrong, you can't sue somebody else for doing something wrong unless you have something called standing, which means you can prove that you are directly impacted by whatever you're suing them for. So a lot of these court cases are not even making it to the point where evidence is even being considered or presented because these court proceedings aren't making it past the standing part, which I don't fully understand who would and who wouldn't have standing in that sort of thing. But that is where it's getting hung up a lot. But of course, the mainstream media is describing that as no evidence.
Yeah, and if you want to have an interesting follow, at Code Monkeys with a Z at the end, his name is Ron. He used to be the 8kun or 8chan admin, and now he's just doing some investigating. He's a techie guy. He's doing some investigation on Dominion, and they have like video. This is what's crazy. They have like video, a clear video of a guy coming in, plugging in the USB and plugging into something that's connected to the internet, which is not supposed to happen. And I mean, they have all this footage. And then now you got, people today or yesterday from, I think it was either Michigan or Pennsylvania, having their, again, making public statements about how there was one truck driver that said he had his truck disappear overnight that held the votes and stuff. I mean, it's like pretty crazy evidence.
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
And they're just, if the mainstream media is not going to take it, then no one's going to care, or not no one, but the majority of the people that would rise up and say something, they're not going to because the mainstream media
in a lot of ways either.
Right.
Have you been following the Project Veritas thing?
I saw it. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I never actually saw the drop. I saw the notice that they are going. I take that back. I listened to a very small clip that was not very interesting. But so for those who don't know, Project Veritas, who has varying degrees of legitimacy, but still very interesting organization, doing a lot of work. Apparently we're on CNN, the morning CNN sort of executive calls for 2 months, recording insider calls, and recorded a bunch of stuff. And a couple days ago said they're going to be releasing bits and pieces over the next week every day. So maybe we'll tune in. Maybe once there's a little bit more to look at, we will talk about it on Friday.
Well, I was going to just mention, did you hear the part about the 9/11 stuff? That was that's pretty insane what they were
pretty crazy
implementing or implying there.
Yeah.
Basically saying the way the transition is covered, it could bring about a whole new 9/11.
Yeah, they're saying it could cause another 9/11 if Trump doesn't hand over the presidency. Like, whoa, is that a threat? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it was crazy. But
but
anyway.
Of course, Project Veritas is claiming that there's all sorts of recordings of CNN executives and different leaders in different leadership positions talking about how basically they're told when and how to cover everything by the Democrats, and which does not come as a surprise to anybody, I think, at this point. But it's very interesting. So another little detail on the election madness.
Yeah, before this is over, we're going to literally have the right-left paradigm is going to prevail, and we're going to have like a Republican internet and a Democrat internet in America.
But that actually is not the craziest thing I've heard today. So
that's good. But also disturbing that saying something as wild as that, you're like, meh.
Yeah, I mean it almost already is like that.
I know,
just
but
with the way Facebook social media echo chambers are constructed, along with Google algorithms and things like that. This is well known, especially if you're a longtime listener of this show. The internet is a different place for you and your left-right paradigm neighbors.
Yeah. All right, you ready for a Flippy update?
Let's do it.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Okie dokie, folks. We're going to do a quick Flippy update before we get to the rest of the stories. And for those who don't know, if you're new to the show, Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy to have discussions about how robotics, AI, and all sorts of other nasty technocalypse players are worming their ways into our lives to take control and steal our souls. But today, I got a Flippy update coming from popularmechanics.com. This came out last week, right before Thanksgiving, but I thought it was pretty interesting. We've followed Flippy for a long time, which is, like I said, the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs. But we also like to talk about Spot. Spot is the robot dog from Boston Dynamics, which can be equipped, they're autonomous and filled with AI and can be equipped with all sorts of tools from hands to claws to scanners to machine guns. But there's been some news with Spot guns. This article is titled, Hyundai wants to buy the robot dog so it can make its cars look like this. Then there's a picture of a concept car, I guess. Looks like a one-seater. And instead of tires like a regular good old-fashioned American automobile, this thing has 4 legs. It's a car with legs.
I think the legs are supposed to morph between wheel and like dog.
So the legs have wheels at the end of the legs, but it looks like the legs can. Let's just get into it. For its next trick, Spot, the world's favorite robot dog, known for perusing the Chernobyl exclusion zone, narking on social distancing rule breakers, and even working on oil rigs, could be getting a major treat from Hyundai. SoftBank is reportedly in talks with the South Korean auto manufacturer to sell off its robotics company, Boston Dynamics Incorporated. According to a Bloomberg report, supposedly the transaction could be worth up to $1 billion. That seems pretty low. That seems like a low ball offer to me, but I guess not a lot of revenue coming from the Spot sales. Last I heard, I think you could buy Spot for yourself for $75,000. So apparently not enough sales. Why is Hyundai so interested in the robot dog? We have a theory, and it has something to do with Spot's legs. Hyundai may want to adapt those limbs for its own completely wild walking car concept. At the 2019 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Hyundai first debuted its so-called Elevate concept, which repaints a number of different electric vehicle concepts as legged insect-looking robots. As CNET's Roadshow said at the time, the car is capable of driving at highway speeds, climbing 5-foot walls, and stepping over 5-foot wide chasms, rendering it basically an AT-AT from Star Wars. In a January 2019 press release, Hyundai said its Elevate concept marks the first ultimate mobility vehicle, a buzzword that basically means the world's first car with legs. The company ultimately bills the strange cars as a possible solution in search and rescue operations. course, you always got to sell it for safety reasons. Here's a quote. When a tsunami or earthquake hits, current rescue vehicles can only deliver first responders to the edge of the debris field. They have to go the rest of the way by foot. Elevate can drive to the scene and climb right over flood debris or crumbled concrete. John Su, vice president at Hyundai, said in the release. That's not super surprising considering some of the coolest robots we've seen, from snake robots, drone fleets to full-out robot squads of varying shape and size, have been for rescue missions in caves and even dangerous inspections in nuclear facilities. The article has a little bit more to go, but that's the important part. So there you go, Gons. It's kind of weird. I don't know if I like the idea of Boston Dynamics being sold to Hyundai. They're over 20 years old, I think, at this point, and have been a staple in the Flippy updates for many years. And now they're selling out so we can have walking cars.
Would you rather have a flying car or a walking car?
I actually kind of like this walking car idea. It's kind of creepy, but it kind of sounds fun. It sounds safer, too. The reason I'm not excited about flying cars is almost certainly we will all die of crashing our flying cars.
Yeah, you say that, but some of these pictures here, there's one where it's kind of walking up this rocky hillside kind of deal.
Uh-huh.
Depending on how fast this thing goes, you can turn into a smoothie inside. It's not going to be very comfortable.
It'll be a little bumpy. You know what I would love to watch, in the days to come when all cars have 4 legs instead of 4 tires? Live police chase videos with a walking car.
Yeah,
would be true. Fantastic. Yeah. Because usually, almost inevitably, the person being chased, just kind of skids out on the side or something, or they hit a fence or get stuck in a ditch. But now these police chases are going to take on it's going to be like parkour. It's going to be parkour police chases in these legged cars. And personally, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be a great time.
So are you saying that the drivers themselves, like the people getting away, they're also going to have the legged cars, and it'll be like
this is in a world where the legged cars are ubiquitous.
Okay.
They'll be coming straight towards a ditch, and then the legs will come out. They'll jump over the ditch, and then they'll climb a fence, and then they'll escape until the police helicopter shoots a bazooka at them or something.
I think the way it'll work out, the police force will have the cars before the consumers. Yeah. So, the car will crash, the guy will get out, run into the woods, and then the cop car will just walk over the little fence, next to the side of the road.
Depends where you are. I will say this. Where I was stranded in California, it looks like their police cars have not been updated since the 80s. So
you would have loved to have this thing.
This thing would have really,
helped you out.
You could rule the rural communities of California in a legged car.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck.
There you go. That's your Flippy update.
Excellent. Did you see my Flippy update that I did in your
didn't
honor?
Like it.
Yeah, it was creepy, right?
No, I didn't think so.
You didn't think it was creepy?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm not trying. I don't want to put you down. That's why I found this one.
The rope? No, not the one that I had for you today. The one from last episode.
Oh, no, I didn't see that one. I tuned in late.
Okay, I'm going to show it to you just so you're up to speed so that,
okay.
Our producers say things and they won't necessarily, you won't be confused. So this was a Reuters article, Egyptian inventor trials robot that can test for COVID-19.
Oh.
And look at this thing.
I am. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I don't like that at all. No, that's the creepiest Flippy I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh, the face. The face.
The funniest part about this article is it interviews the guy who made it, and he says that he tried to make the robot more human with a head and a face and everything to not scare people.
He did a bad job.
That was kind of the whole point. It's like, wow, man, if I saw this thing, if I was in a hospital strapped to a bed and I saw this thing roll in to like test me, that we came up with different things we can do to it. But
yeah,
anyway,
this guy was approaching the uncanny valley, and then instead of making this mistake of crossing the uncanny valley, he just drove his car right off the cliff, and it exploded at the bottom. And yeah, no, that's a scary looking robot.
what's the meme with the guy, the face meme that's like the angry? I don't know what it's called. It's like a really simple drawing of a.
I'm gonna need more details.
Is it the Wojak? The NPC. NPC.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what they look like in robot form.
Yeah, that's an NPC robot for sure.
Okay. Anyway. All right. Moving on here. We got some updates.
We interrupt this broadcast to give you a brief update. By the end of this timely interruption, you will be thoroughly updated.
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
33 is the Illuminati dog whistle, and they always have 33 in articles that have to do with various things, like of course, I skipped one. Nope. This one. Aha. WBKO.com. Ohio County adds 33 COVID-19 cases on Monday.
Ooh,
of course,
perfect.
Always. But we also have this one from CNET.com. The 33 best movies to stream on Disney Plus.
Oh,
Hey.
great. That's a great 33 update.
Let us know all 33 of them.
Oh,
And of
man,
course,
we got to decode this 33 thing. Of course, we don't know exactly what they're trying to say, but it always corresponds with something nasty.
Well, 33, especially with the 33 Club at Disneyland. There's a closer tie-in with the Masonic stuff there with Disney and all that with 33. So,
Precisely.
It was a little more obvious here.
Yeah, they really hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah. And also another update here, moving on to some different things.
Blockchain. I am not capable of hatred.
Ooh, is that Zuckerberg?
Triple.
Oh, yeah. This is VentureBeat.com. Facebook-backed cryptocurrency Libra rebranded as Diem in quest for regulatory approval.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, Libra got so much heat, they're changing it up, and they're called Diem now, and that's DIEM, like Carpe Diem.
Yeah, right.
And Diem means day to day, or the day type of deal.
Yeah, so they're continuing their mission to become a sort of ubiquitous cryptocurrency that Facebook controls.
And the funniest part about this, when you would probably understand this more than those who are not as well versed in crypto, but it's a stable coin. It's a dollar. It's a dollar stable coin, 1-to-1 to the US dollar, which is, it pretty much defeats the purpose of having anything crypto in a way, other than to monitor what you're using your dollars on.
Exactly.
That's
Tracking
the only
purposes.
reason why this thing would exist.
Yep. You can track individual coins and basically read every fingerprint that has ever touched that coin, which is just another part of the oncoming control mechanisms of the new economic age.
And the Great Reset. And they just want to keep track of how people are going to be spending, especially on and off ramps to actual digital assets that have, real value.
Well, it's the one thing that Facebook doesn't know about you is exactly where your dollars go. I mean, they have an idea if you're buying stuff through Marketplace and following ads. But with this cryptocurrency, Facebook will literally know every single thing you do throughout the day. So look, we're not, obviously, if you listen to the show, we're not anti-cryptocurrency as a concept, but this is an example of how cryptocurrencies can be used in very inappropriate pro-beast system ways.
Yeah, precisely. That's going to launch in January. So good luck, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Have fun.
Yep. Moving on here. Oh, yes, of course.
Aliens. It's unidentified.
Last episode, we talked about the monolith in Utah, and apparently the New York Times debunked it. or at least reported on the men who dismantled the Utah monolith. But Reuters.com reported mystery monolith vanishes in Romania. Alien action or local prank? I love how they just throw it out there. It's kind of like...
so the Romanian one is gone already?
It's gone, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they don't know who did it.
Yeah. Well, we hadn't done a show. You know, we kind of missed out on this whole monolith thing because
the monolith week.
Yes, monolith week. We kind of missed out on it, which is too bad. But also, you know, I did end up seeing a close-up picture. I was pretty intrigued. I mean, it was an intriguing thing to happen. But when the close-up picture started coming out, I was less intrigued because you could see rivets, you know, you could tell it was a man-made thing and not a solid block of alien steel.
Sure. Although I did find this footage. I don't know if you can see it, Basil. Or do you have?
I am now.
Okay.
Oh, the brushed steel look?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah.
No, I have this video here of a potential culprit of
I did see this.
The one who put the monolith down. It's a Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's good. This was great. We solved two mysteries at once. It's Sasquatch walking through the forest and putting up his own little monolith. You know, I do gotta say, we have some very, very devout Sasquatch enthusiasts who come into the chat every single show. And, you know, we don't give them enough attention, Steven being one of them. So here's your shout out, Steven. There's the Squatch.
There's the Squatch.
We're not Squatch shills. We're not trying to hide the truth. We found it.
And he definitely is responsible for the monolith. This one, not very well done, though. Kind of like, it looks like a ladder.
No, this was a prototype. This was the first prototype.
Okay, yeah. A lot of tin foil, looks like.
Mm-hmm. Somebody got on this pretty quick, and they just had a Sasquatch suit laying around. This is somebody who bought a Sasquatch suit like 5 years ago and hasn't worn it in a while. It's like, oh, okay, finally I can make a video with this thing. Quick, Deborah, get the tin foil.
Yeah, I'm sure that was an exciting moment for whoever put this together. All right, well, also, you know, the New World Order is here.
Oh, the New World Order is here!
We've been tracking all the various countries that have been talking about Build Back Better and the Great Reset, and Egypt has joined the fun. This is dailynewsegypt.com. COVID-19 accelerates reforms to build back better through inclusivity, Egypt's Al-Mashat said. His current development financing portfolio has 13 projects. You guys remember the number 13 and its significance to Osiris. And it's targeting gender equality as a main thing. So there you go. Egypt buying in.
Yeah,
it's weird.
We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, but it's just strange how it's almost like they're taking turns, like all these countries. You know, like the dark pope at the top or whatever, the Antichrist, is like your turn to, you know, virtue signal to the world with Build Back Better. And
it would be interesting. Reset. Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know. Maybe somebody has already done this, but to put together a timeline of Build Back Better disclosure and see which countries came out when and in what order. Yeah. There might be some sort of pattern there. For those very particular listeners who are looking for a new conspiracy project, that might be an interesting one. Yeah, if you do it, send us an email.
Yeah, that'll definitely be time consuming.
Certainly, I don't have the attention span to do it, but somebody out there does.
Yeah, and you want to probably do it before the internet completely splits. You know, you don't want to be caught using the other people's internet.
Oh, no.
And one of the things that we talked about a few episodes ago, and I don't even know if we talked about it on the show. Now I'm getting confused.
I don't remember anything about... Oh, I'm sorry. Are you moving on to the next update?
Yeah, the next update, yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. So.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let me set it up then.
The race wars.
Race wars.
I've warned you and warned you and warned you.
I think it was actually a tweet that I sent out because I obviously I feel a little bit more responsible or do something about the situation where one of the leaders, the new leaders in Japan, came out and said that they're going to be pushing the multicultural aspects, or bringing in different cultures into Japan so that it becomes more multi or diverse in their cultural whatever. And that's sort of
it's pretty 180. It's kind of a 180 shift.
It's
for
a big
Japan,
time
isn't
shift. Yeah, it's a big time shift, and it's really here it is. The Japanese foreign minister announces plan to transform Japan into a diverse, multi-ethnic society, and that goes against everything that's like a nation like Japan, who's very nationalistic. They're very consistent with, and maybe to a fault to some degree, because they can be sort of racist.
Well, there's a lot of pride.
There's a lot of pride,
national pride. Yeah.
Sure, and I get it. There's some issues with racism in that regard. If people that are half or whatever, they get discriminated and stuff like that in Japan.
Is that true? Does that happen?
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Oh, interesting.
But again, it's the
thought
sort
that
of
was just America, guns.
No. It happens everywhere.
Okay.
But it is sort of the byproduct of having a national, like an actual national pride, you can say, or nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
But that's being broken down, and some of the evidence is showing up here. Al Jazeera, Japan, Nike advertisement on bullying, racism faces backlash, boycott calls. And again, I won't.
In Japan?
In Japan, yeah. So they did a Nike advertisement saying like, "Oh, you can't bully
Don't
racists."
Be racist.
And yeah, a whole bunch of people in Japanese were not happy with the whole thing, saying,
Wait. Just to get clarity on what you said,
okay.
You can't bully racists, or you can't be
no,
racist?
You can't be racist.
Okay.
The Nike was saying, I think here, let me read some of it so that a video advertisement from Nike Japan against bullying and racism that features biracial athletes and other minorities, such as those of Korean descent, has prompted a sharp online response, including calls to boycott the company. The commercial,
Really?
Yeah, the commercial "Keep Moving Yourself, the Future," released on November 30th, shows several teenage girls bullied in school over their race or other differences, but who ultimately find confidence through their prowess in football. And then people just responded with different reactions here. One of them said, "Nowadays, you often see one or two people of different nationalities going to school perfectly peacefully. That's one. The one that's prejudiced is Nike," which is that is kind of a, I don't think it's as.
Did they just not like being called racist?
I think I think it. So I think the Japanese citizens here have a point, because realistically in Japan, if you're from another country, they treat you well. When I went to Japan. With a friend who was Irish descent a long time ago. This was when I was a kid. He wore a Superman shirt. My goodness, Superman! Pictures. Back then it was
Kodak, I mean, I gotta say,
cameras.
I went over to Japan for a while when I was younger, and I felt like a celebrity, man. It was awesome.
Yeah. So they treat them well. So when Nike does this type of thing, and they're like, "Oh, bad racist Japanese people," I think the response is going to be like, "Hey, hello, what are you guys talking about?" And another asked, "Is it so much fun to blame Japan?" That's such a Japanese way of saying it,
Yeah.
But
here's a funny story. I've not told this story. When I was in Japan, I was doing some ministry work over there when I was very young. I mean, my early teens, and a nice Japanese girl proposed to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got my first marriage proposal when I was like 13 in Japan. It was great.
"Take me to your homeland. My slave master beat me every day."
Oh, stop it.
I know. "He make me cook." Okay, sorry.
I was actually kind of sad because she gave me a ring and everything.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I had it in like a little, you have your shoebox full of memories or whatever. And I don't know, must have been about 10 years. I opened that box and it was gone. Somebody stole my proposal, my wedding proposal ring.
Okay, and this is the thing. Okay, so Japanese sports fans have celebrated Osaka, who counts Nike as a sponsor and makes a cameo appearance in the advertisement. But she was once depicted as a cartoon character by another sponsor, Nissan, with pale skin and light brown hair, while a comedy duo said she, quote, needed some bleach. So, yeah, okay. Pretty awful, but comedic duo saying it in Japan. Okay, all right, whatever. But anyway, I just thought it was pretty funny that, or pretty weird, or not weird, I guess obvious that, the Japanese foreign minister would announce this plan, and then within a week or a couple weeks, we have a story of Nike trying to push this thing, in Japan, and already a backlash.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be with the Japanese people here. Let's preserve the culture as much as possible, and that doesn't go for just Japan. That goes for all other, nations out there trying to preserve their culture. I have no problem. I think that's a good thing.
In this world of globalization and the entire world being Americanized, I think it's totally cool for countries to try to not become one monoculture, which is the risk that we're having right now.
And I see Wasting Down Time 2 or Second, I think, in the chat saying that she's from Japan. And so that's cool. It's nice to have international viewers and listeners in the chat here.
Yes, she's been amening everything you're saying. She agrees.
Good. And I'm anti-Nike anyway, right? They got the Chinese children making their shoes. But also, this is a dead giveaway, just to note. Dota 2 star Ramses666 is now a Nike-sponsored athlete.
That is so funny. For those who are not aware of the esports community, this is a professional video game player who is now a Nike athlete. Oh my gosh, there's still a chance for me, Gons.
Although
my esports career is waiting.
You might have to virtue signal Satanism.
Yeah.
Or like the beast itself, and be good at games.
This is one of the benefits of being in the line of work that you and I are in. We could probably signal, put out all the right Illuminati signals better than even many of the legit, Illuminati agents.
That's true, because we understand them better than they understand themselves.
I know. That's what I love about it. Cons, I told you these updates were going to take 45 minutes, but let's keep moving. Do you want me to do these ones?
Yes, I highlighted them, so you do them.
Okay, let's do this one. It's a pandemic special.
A pandemic special.
Okay, this is coming from USA Today. Fact check. Photo shows doctor hug lonely coronavirus patient on Thanksgiving. That's right, folks. We've got a bona fide fact check. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can show the picture. Somebody posted this picture of a doctor. Could be construed as hugging an old man in the hospital, obviously. And he made a very touching post about, some people are stuck in the hospital with coronavirus, can't see their families, and wear a mask. And so USA Today decided they needed to run a fact check on this picture of a hug. Apparently, it was a slow news day. And Gons, do you want to know what their rating was, what their fact check was?
Oh, please tell me. Is this true? Is this fake? Fake news?
Fact check says true. This is a real picture of a real hug.
It's gotten to that point, I guess.
I know. What kind of ridiculous world are we living in where USA Today, a multi-million, if not billion-dollar media company, has to pay somebody to fact check a hug, a picture of a hug, and apparently it wasn't even worth it because it was true in the first place. Who was questioning this picture of a hug? All right, moving on. But there you go. There is one update. Gons, I'll show you how to shoot through these updates. We got another pandemic special.
You step on jingles is what you do.
No, that was your timing.
A pandemic special.
Okay, this one is coming from CNN Business. Oh, let me turn off that. Fake news about a COVID-19 vaccine has become a second pandemic. Red Cross chief says. This has been Yeah, this has been an interesting sort of development about how bad information is another pandemic. And it's been coming out from several different sources, but they just keep piling on now with the Red Cross chief. COVID-19 vaccines are fast approaching. We'll get to that in a second. But a second pandemic might impede efforts to recover from the first, according to the president of Global Humanitarian Aid Group. The second pandemic, fake news about those very vaccines. This is it seems funny, and it's kind of poking fun at it. This is actually a very dangerous rhetorical move that's being played here, in my opinion. For a year now, we've been, terrified by this word pandemic. Not just terrified, mind controlled. It has split society. It has severed family ties. Friends are now enemies, all because of this word pandemic. Legislation is being put into effect. Governors are overreaching their legal authority in their states, all because of this word pandemic. And now, as always happens, and we love tracing this stuff because we're seeing the beginning of it here. There's now a transmogrification happening of the word pandemic from its actual definition of a disease that is spreading at a certain rate and affecting a large portion of the population to anything they want it to be. Like news they don't agree with is now pandemic, and they will use that word to crack down, make more legislation, not about a virus or people's health, but about controlling the information flow. So there you go. You heard it here first. Labeling, it's again part of the double speak, the mind control of language that the media uses to create narratives out of a lot of times out of nothing. And there you go. Anything to say about this, Gon?
Well, I think you covered the bases there, but
got it.
Yeah,
nailed it.
Making it a second pandemic and having it not actually be a physical disease, virus, whatever, is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's very disappointing, because Red Cross, I didn't have much trust for Red Cross for a while, but in the last decade, or maybe even more than that, anytime there was a natural disaster, whether it be a hurricane or any kind of the tsunami, a whole bunch of people were like, oh, send money to Red Cross, send money to Red Cross. And I was always like, do they really use that money to help people? So I was skeptical of them already, but this is like a dead giveaway now. It's like, now how do you ever support this company, this organization?
Yeah, it's just it's a non-profit, charity-based New World Order mechanism is what it's kind of turned into. Of course, hopefully that they are doing good in disaster zones and stuff. I haven't heard much on the boots reporting about that, but that is what they allege, and they may very well do that. But this participation in the changing we saw the changing of language. What was the one that they actually changed the dictionary definition of something because of ACB?
I don't remember now.
Sexual orientation
or something.
Preference. Sorry, it was sexual preference.
Maybe
where
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was sexual preference, and ACB used it, and the next day the dictionary changed it to an offensive term. So, you have all these organizations participating in the manipulation of language that will inevitably be used for more grasps of control. But we have another pandemic special update. Guns.
Before we go on to that one, the quote from the guy from the Red Cross here is that it's a parallel pandemic. They have to defeat the parallel pandemic of mistrust that has consistently hindered our collective response to this disease, and that can undermine our shared ability to vaccinate against it. That sounds to me like a declaration of war.
Yeah,
it's literally like these people have hindered our ability to help people.
It
is really messed
You're
up.
actively killing people by having different ideas than us.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, well, next one.
A pandemic special.
Okay, this one was fun. This is coming from MSN.com. It was originally popping up on Fox, but just for fun, I looked for it in other places. And we hadn't talked about MSN in a while, so here we are. CDC director, school is one of the safest places kids can be. This is part of why I grabbed this one. It's a mirrored article from the Daily Mail, but I just loved one of the safest places kids can be. Schools are among the safest places that American children can be amid surging cases of coronavirus across the country. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Dr. Robert Redfield said on Thursday night during a rare White House coronavirus task force briefing. He called school closures an emotional response to rising infection rates. He said that data does not support the notion that closing schools reduces coronavirus transmissions. So that's all you really need to know. I mean, I'm just not going to waste our time by reading the rest of the article. I'm sure somebody will have a problem with that, but read it for yourself. They break down some of the numbers, but you know what I love, Gons? Throughout at least the past 6 months of the pandemic, the CDC has been the best source of information guarding against what governments are trying to do.
Like lockdowns and
yes,
yeah,
lockdowns, masks for a while, now school closures. It's like the government, whether it be state or oftentimes federal, they're trying to lock everything down. They're trying to create their new world order, and the CDC repeatedly is like, "No, guys, don't worry about it. We listen to the good liberals. We are the bosses when it comes to this. You don't need to close schools. You don't need to do all these lockdowns. You'll be fine." And governments are like, "No, we must gain more control."
They're just like, "Hey, well, we're just going to take the safe road and we'll go ahead and lock down and destroy businesses and all that." By the way, did you see there was a guy, people have been arrested in recent days in Canada, and they shut a place down in New York. A guy that was just trying to run his business.
Lockdown stuff?
Yeah, lockdown stuff, like anti-lockdown.
Yeah, I saw that guy who owned a gym who was being fined $15,000. Is that the one you're talking about?
Was it a gym? Maybe it was I thought it was a restaurant.
I saw one. I don't know. I thought I saw one where a guy owned a gym and was just ignoring lockdown. And he got a $15,000 bill or something from the government. And he just rips it up and throws it into the air. He's a hardcore guy. I am not going to mess with him. If I was a cop ordered to go arrest this guy, I would not mess around with him.
They're going to have to roll out the Hyundai robot legs walking.
Yes, the four-legged robot car. So there you go. There's your pandemic special updates.
There is an interesting thing from the perspective of the left that they can point out an inconsistency with people on the right in this right-left false paradigm. Because, a few months ago, the left liberal Democrats, they were all saying, defund the police. And the Republicans were like, no, blue lives matter. And then now with certain locations, they're like, the Gestapo is here. They're arresting the people unlawfully. And the liberals are like, wait, I thought you guys wanted police officers. So it is a mess. I can see why they did all that to really get people confused.
The switcheroos.
It's crazy.
The ideological switcheroos just keep happening, and a big story about that later on in the show. But yeah, you're totally right. They're good. They're good at really confusing people about what they believe. It's very, when you know how to spot it, it's fun and frustrating to watch. But a lot of people just aren't really paying attention to, how they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
And And also human beings are able to hold two different ideas about something at the same time.
What? No, we're not. Come on.
Yeah, in a very impressive way. A lot of times, that's true. That's one of the marks of intelligence, they say.
Really?
Or maybe that's mind control as well. Yeah, no, that's one of the things. One of the key aspects of intelligence is being able to have two contradictory thoughts about something at the same time.
Oh, that's probably why my wife married me. I was like, I hate you, but I love you.
I have a feeling that a lot of marriages have an aspect of that. Okay, one last update here. You want me to take it?
Let me do it because I'm going to launch you into the vaccine. Vaccine thing.
Vaccine.
This is MarketWatch.com. 100% of Americans that want the vaccine will have had the vaccine by June, says Operation Warp Speed official.
Yeah, I mean, there's only like 100 people who want it, so that seems like a reasonable goal.
Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski tells MSNBC that more than 300 million doses will be available well before then. So there you go. Those who want it will get it. And
the absolute opposite of the story they were telling last week, but okay.
Yeah, and we did on Monday, when in your absence, I did have a story, I think it was from The Hill, that the CDC advisory panel said that people, and your thing about the CDC, they were basically saying like, hey, we need to make sure that the people understand that when they get this vaccine, there might be some side effects because they have to come back for the second one. We can't turn them off, because of all the side effects. So just make sure they know that they're going to feel terrible and some might die, but come back for number 2.
But come back for number 2. You only got to do it twice
this season, and then next year it would have morphed.
That's what they don't tell you. I will say, just as one last little personal update, I had my yearly or bi-yearly, whatever, doctor's appointment yesterday. No, she did not give me anabolic steroids, but she was very serious. I've never seen her push me in this way about getting the flu vaccine. Did not say a single word about coronavirus.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, and I took that. I'm going to put words in her mouth, but I took that to mean don't worry about this coronavirus nonsense, but do get the flu vaccine.
You know why?
Even though the flu is down 5%, down, the CDC has stopped counting flu cases because it's so small. But the coronavirus is a flu.
You know why? It's all about the money. And I bet you the hospital has already bought a whole bunch of the flu vaccine.
Oh, totally.
They need to administer
and that's
that.
been well known. Yeah. That's well known for a while. Doctors get paid to strongly suggest people get the flu vaccine. So there you go. Nothing new.
Vaccine.
Oh, our UK friends.
Oh, the UK friends. Let me take this one. It looks like you've got a lot of notes on the second.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take this first group here. Here we go. This was a fun one that came across my desk yesterday or today. It is today, I believe. HuffPost. Gotta love it. The HuffPost. And yes, I will mention, for those who are new to the show, you'll notice we read from a lot of pretty well-known propaganda outlets. That's on purpose. We're not reading these articles to convince you that they're true. We're reading them to dissect them and see, how the mind control works. So don't be afraid. I'm reading from HuffPost. The article is titled, UK approves Pfizer BioNTech coronavirus vaccine for emergency use. Dun, dun, dun. But it gets more exciting, Gons. The Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine has been approved for use in the UK and will be made available from next week, UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock said. Wow. So the UK, they're starting early. They want to get the vaccine out there. And for all of our UK listeners, really, you need to give us early reports about what it's like in the UK during vaccine week. There it is. Next week is vaccine week.
Oh, there you go.
We'll run some sort of producership special. We'll keep an eye out. Maybe 19, 20, 19. I don't know. We'll figure it out. UK regulators are the first to approve Pfizer vaccine for emergency use, and Britain will be one of the first countries to start vaccinating their population. Studies have shown the jab. I had to grab this article because it goes back to the jab, which as Americans, Gons, we were very confused by, and our UK listeners were very happy to educate us that the jab is a totally normal way of referring to the vaccine. So studies have shown the jab to be 95% effective and works in all age groups. No safety concerns arose from the clinical trials.
What?
Yeah. No safety concerns arose from the clinical trials. Now, Gons, this is why I contacted you before the show today. Of course, on this show, we covered a lot of the safety concerns that came from the clinical trials. But it did occur to me that I do remember specifically reporting on the Mrna safety issues. Do you remember at all if there were safety issues that came from the Pfizer trials?
Yeah, see, I was trying to find exactly, and there was only some stuff that said that there were some side effects, and the one that there was a couple that I had here. One of them is from 10news.com, San Diego. What are the side effects of the Moderna and Pfizer COVID vaccines? And that was published on November 19th. And it says here in the article, Pfizer reported 3.8% of the recipients felt fatigue and 2% experienced headaches based on preliminary data from its phase 3 trial. And that's phase 3. I don't remember the phase 1 or 2.
Right.
It's a smaller sample size, but
yeah, so they had nasty side effects, but as far as we could, again, it could have all been erased.
Sure, but
I feel like I remember there being some pretty serious issues. At least with the Moderna vaccine, there was like a spinal infection.
Right,
At least one person died from it.
Yeah,
pretty serious.
The Pfizer one, it says these symptoms are classified as grade 3 or severe adverse events because they can interfere with daily activity. So that was, between 2 and 4%.
Yeah, they were saying like, I mean, you'll have to take a few days off work,
right,
to get the the vaccine. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna be really sick for a few days just after each dose, of which there are 2.
So
it's pretty serious.
So this goes directly against the thing I just mentioned from the last episode where I mentioned the Hill.com reporting on the CDC advisory panel saying, hey, make sure you warn them. Make sure you let them know that, the side effects can happen.
Right, because they didn't want people running away.
Right. So this is, the HuffPost is like, whatever. Yeah. Don't listen to the CDC, those quacks. No safety concerns arose from the trial. You're going to be just fine. Get over here and get your jab. Get your jab.
Double speak is really impressive.
Jab.
The article continues. U.S. and European Union regulators are reviewing the Pfizer shot along with a similar vaccine developed by Moderna. British regulators are also reviewing a vaccine candidate developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca had some bad stuff happen in the trials too. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is set to meet December 10th and decide whether to recommend the Pfizer vaccine for emergency emergency use. The first shipments of the vaccine will arrive in the U.S. on December 15th, CNN reported. The UK has secured some 40 million doses in total, with 10 million due in the country by the end of the year. People will need 2 doses, meaning enough has been bought for 20 million Brits. The shots will have to come to Britain from the company's distribution center in Belgium and need to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius. Oh, this is the one that has this crazy refrigeration thing.
Yeah, it's the mRNA vaccines.
Yeah, oh no. Hancock told BBC Breakfast on Wednesday morning that 800,000 doses of the vaccine will be available next week, with several millions more arriving throughout December. He added, quote, "Will then deploy at the speed that it's manufactured." And the manufacturing is, of course, being done by Pfizer in Belgium. So that will determine the speed at which we can roll it out. Sir Simon Stevens, chief executive of the NHS, that's the National Health Service in England, said the vaccination program would be the, quote, "largest scale vaccination campaign in our country's history." Ooh, Hancock tweeted, "Help is on the way. The Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency has formally authorized the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for COVID-19. Quote, the NHS stands ready to start vaccinating early next week. The UK is the first country in the world to have a clinically approved vaccine for supply." On the challenge posed by the need for the vaccine to be stored at an ultra-low temperature, Hancock told Sky News, quote, "This is a challenging rollout, and the NHS in all parts of the UK stands ready to make that happen." Do you think it's at negative 70 degrees Celsius as it's being injected into you?
There's no way.
That would kill you, right?
Yeah. There's no way that
would freeze your veins on contact.
It'll be like
that's my hunch. I'm no expert, but
it'll be like the freeze. You know, remember Arnold?
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Yeah. What was his line? It's getting cold or whatever.
Yeah. Chill out.
Chill out.
I like how that was your go-to witty pun. It's getting cold.
I don't know, but you know, Pfizer had a history. I think in like the 1990s, there was a vaccine thing that they did in Nigeria that like killed people and maimed people.
It's a classic.
And so, of course, you know, in the last few months, they had a Nigerian doctor come out and say, "Oh, we're so excited about the Pfizer vaccines."
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there was a while there where a lot of African countries were sick and tired of being experimented on, which I totally support them for that. Yeah. It's kind of a weird, sick joke that, Bill Gates and other companies test unsafe vaccines on Africans.
Yeah, and it was actually 2011, which was, 15 years? Yeah, 15 years after the fact that Pfizer actually started to pay out the people that were affected by that experiment.
International vaccine courts.
Yeah.
Peace, Love, Joy, and Purple in the Twitch chat says, question, can you still get C-19 after getting the vaccine? I don't know. I'm not a professional, but the professional Dr. Fauci says yes. So,
yeah, you still need to wear masks.
I'm not. Do we have that clip? I'm not spreading fake news, right?
No,
he said even after the vaccine, there's still a big risk, right?
Yeah, he said there's a big risk. I think that was the whole thing where he said,
"Now is the time to do what you're told."
Yes.
Yeah, it was the same event, I think. Man.
Let me see here. Let me browse through this. I think that is, I don't think there's anything of import left in the article. But the big news being next week is Vax Week for you UK folks. So UK listeners, send us an email, canarycryradio@gmail.com. We want to hear what the deal is, especially if there's some sort of pressure or, God forbid, some sort of mandatory situation. I'm not exactly sure what the current situation is in the UK, but I know Boris Johnson really got on board with the whole New World Order thing halfway through the pandemic.
Did you see the clip that I played in the last episode of an American vaccine distributor say that they put RFID chips in the vaccine?
No.
You didn't see that one?
No.
It's worth playing again. Let me pull it up here because it was on
What channel is this? Is this a verified thing?
CBN.
CBN, Christian Broadcast Network.
Christian Broadcast Network. Yeah. Let me find it here. Okay, let me pull it up. And
I mean, that would make sense. Of course, that's something that we've been told is going to be happening literally my entire life.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see here. Let's see.
Between my company, Apogec Systems of America, and the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense. And its purpose is to ensure that by year end, we'll have at least 100 million doses ready to inject of a vaccine or therapeutic, assuming one is available.
How does the optional RFID chip work?
Well, each of these devices that are injecting have the capacity to also have a small chip. What that chip does is it has the unique serial number for each dose. It is designed so that there is no counterfeiting. It's designed so that we'll know exactly that the right dose hasn't expired. However, that chip only refers to the dose. There's no personal information, no patient information. It's simply like a barcode, only we know instantaneously where and when that dose has been used. That also helps public health officials know when there are outbreaks, have we vaccinated enough people in those areas? That technology is purely optional, however, and the U.S. government hasn't even decided if they're going to use it.
There you
Optional to who? Optional to me or optional to the government?
I think the government. It sounded like the government because he said the government hasn't decided whether to.
That's pretty crazy.
It's pretty weird, right?
I'm gonna have to look into this guy. I mean, that's ginormous news if that is.
And on CBN too.
True. I don't know. CBN.
I know.
They just kind of do their own thing.
I know, but it's you would think that somebody in the back at CBN is like, well, majority of our audience are Christians and they're all into the mark of the beast thing. And
well, right. That's kind of what a little bit makes me suspicious. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that guy because as a news organization, of which I trust none of them at this point, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's CNN. Don't care if it's Fox. Don't care if it's OAN. I don't care if it's CBN. I don't care. I don't care where it is. I don't trust any of them unless I can look at the data myself. And CBN is part of that group, mainly because they have a lot of money to make by releasing a video that explicitly says that there's going to be a chip in the vaccine. It may be true. Like I said, I was even when I was in the most vanilla churches in my life, they are talking about, a chip being in a vaccine being the mark of the beast. So it's a little too perfect, but I'm not saying it's false. I'm not saying it's true. I don't know. I got to look into it. We got to look into it.
Okay. Well, how would you say is the trust level of our leaders right now? Do you think it's high or low? What would you say?
You mean me personally?
You personally, just your take on the culture, American culture or world culture, whichever one you'd like. Trust for leaders. How is it?
On a scale of a church mouse to a rhinoceros, I would say I think the trust level is about 3.
I was hoping you'd come up with an animal that fits that description in between the church mouse and the rhinoceros. Okay, so I don't think generally there is a lot of trust right now. I think obviously it's different in geographical regions and political affiliation, but I don't think there's a whole lot. Yeah, well, there's one organization that would agree with you.
A new world order can emerge.
The New World Order agrees with me.
The World Economic Forum.org.
Finally, something we can agree on.
3 ways to fight corruption and restore trust in leadership.
Wow.
They're really they see it falling apart. They must scour the social medias and see that the only people agreeing with them are crazy libjos.
Well, at least it shows that they're paying attention.
That's true. So the bullet points: as people around the world place their trust in the production and distribution of a COVID-19 vaccine, we must ensure corruption does not get in the way. Not only is calling on leaders to champion a culture of integrity and good governance the right thing to do, but it will also ensure that our global recovery efforts are not deviated by corruption. Here are 3 ways to overhaul our approach to combating corruption.
Corruption.
You know, it's funny.
What is their definition of corruption here?
I was going to say that, the double speak, or like the hidden thing, sort of the mishap here is that organizations like the World Economic Forum they're at the tip of the criticism of corruption. So for them to be like, oh, let's fix corruption, let's make sure there's no corruption. It's like, okay, the corrupt organization is saying no more corruption.
Yeah.
It says here, as we identify the paths necessary to come out of this compounded COVID-19 crisis, and prepare the conditions for a much needed great reset, we must also keep the focus on long-standing challenges that will affect this recovery, most notably the fight against corruption and the search for greater trust and integrity in institutions across social, economic, and political systems. We have a unique window of opportunity to get recovery right and create a sustainable society if we put good governance, transparency, and accountability at the heart of all efforts and realize stakeholder capitalism, an economy that serves the interests of all.
Yeah. Who are they writing to? Like, who do they think that is reading this? Who, you know what I mean? They keep saying we, and stakeholder. Well, from my point of view, they're just talking to themselves and referring to stakeholders as rich people or something.
It's 100% right. So stakeholder capitalism, all right, because I needed to look into what stakeholder capitalism is, a little more specifically. Yeah. And it's a hyperlink that takes you to another World Economic Forum article, Why We Need the Davos Manifesto for a Better Kind of Capitalism.
We don't need that. We don't need it, and we don't want it.
We already have it, I think, because this article is from December 2019, a year ago.
Oh, my gosh.
And so what kind of capitalism do we want? They basically say that they want a stakeholder capitalism, a model, and this is written in first person, which is always weird on the World Economic Forum website. Stakeholder capitalism, a model I first proposed a half century ago, as if like the World Economic Forum is a person. Positions private corporations as trustees of society. And is clearly
private corporations as trustees of society. Oh, I just got a little sick. That just made me a little sick to my stomach.
Yeah. And is clearly the best response to today's social and environmental challenges. Remember, this is before the coronavirus that this actual sentence or paragraph was written.
That is the scariest thing I've ever heard.
And then they bash shareholder capitalism, currently the dominant model, first gained ground in the U.S. in the 70s and expanded its influence globally. In the following decades, its rise was not without merit. During its heyday, hundreds of millions of people around the world prospered as profit-seeking companies unlocked new markets and created new jobs. But that wasn't the whole story. Advocates of shareholder capitalism, including Milton Friedman and the Chicago School, had neglected the fact that a publicly listed corporation is not just a profit-seeking entity, but also a social organism. Together with financial industry pressures to boost short-term results, a single-minded focus on profits caused shareholder capitalism to become increasingly disconnected from the real economy. All right, there's maybe something in there about, okay, yeah, you're always focused on the bottom line. That's kind of like the typical criticism people have for capitalism or corporatism. Many realize this form of capitalism is no longer sustainable. The question is, why have attitudes begun to change only now? And then they get into the Greta Thunberg effect.
Only now.
The Greta Thunberg effect. In effect now.
How dare you?
It's pretty good, Greta.
Thanks. I've been working on it.
But so the idea of stakeholder capitalism, and again, this article has a quote from Klaus Schwab. Again, this is December 2019. This is a year ago.
Wow.
So this is before everybody started bashing on Klaus.
But I will say this is right when the elites were allegedly told about coronavirus starting. Yeah. And now
it is. It's almost like they knew.
We kind of skipped it, but there's actually, I have it right here. It's an NPR article talking about how, it's called Coronavirus was in the U.S. weeks earlier than previously known and puts coronavirus in the U.S. sometime in December of 2019. So they were publishing this article as they knew the coronavirus was in the United States.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the quote from Klaus Schwab is, quote, "The World Economic Forum is releasing a new Davos Manifesto, which states that companies should pay their fair share of taxes, show zero tolerance for corruption, uphold human rights throughout their global supply chains, and advocate for a competitive level playing field." And the article continues, but to uphold the principles of stakeholder capitalism, companies will need new metrics. For starters, a new measure of, quote, shared value creation should include, quote, environmental, social, and governance, ESG goals as a complement to standard financial metrics. Fortunately, an initiative to develop a new standard along these lines is already underway with support from the Big Four accounting firms and led by the chairman of the International Business Council, Bank of America CEO, Brian Moynihan. And it kind of goes on here, but here's what's going to happen. And this is part of the Great Reset. And the reason why states like California are even in again, they're, locking everything down again and fears of locking down even. And we'll see what happens with the UK. I'll be interested to see first round of vaccines. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to lock down. It's not working. Lock down more.
Yeah.
What's happening? This is clearly, this is clear as day for anybody that's paying attention here. They're destroying the middle class, obviously. The mom and pop shops aren't able to work anymore because they're being basically shut down. And the big chains, the Costco's, the Walmarts, they're the only ones open, right? So why are we allowed to go to Costco and wait in lines like slaves, but we can't go down to our mom and pop shop because they want to destroy that middle class? But here's the other part. So they want everybody poor, but here's the other angle to this. They want to tax the big corporations, right? They want to tax them to death for the wealthy people that actually have assets. So that's why the whole Joe Biden, if you have more than $400,000, then you're going to pay 65% taxes,
right?
So it's almost like they are grabbing everybody from both ends. They're destroying the middle class, but also they're making everybody poor that way. And so the poor people are like, yeah, we need reform, and then that creates this justification to tax the wealthy. Not just the corporations, but the people that actually have assets, the wealthy people that have land and all this stuff. They'll be taxed to death, and then now the control mechanism is complete. They have it from both ends.
Well, right, and to add a little, just to give it a little bit more of a spin on it too, as Stephen is pointing out, they're talking about if you make $400,000 a year or more, then you'll be taxed. But once they destroy the middle class, $400K kind of becomes the middle class.
Right.
If you destroy the middle class right now has a definition. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's somewhere between per family 75,000 to 250,000 a year is my guess. But if you destroy that class, that just moves the 400K people, that redefines the middle class, and then you're taxing them, so then you are taxing the middle class 65%.
Right.
Because, of course, it's the ultra bajillionaires who are the ones who are going to get away with the most, the ones who own Walmart and own, $400,000 a year. That's somebody who owns a successful, large, mid-sized business.
Yeah.
That, you're not talking about the Walton family or anything at that point.
They're like
billions. You're talking, if you have a family who owns maybe a chain of, I don't know, chicken joints or something. And when I say chain, I mean a regional chain.
I would even say, I think the those types of companies
in your area, in LA, making $400K a year, that is the middle class, basically.
Oh, yeah, that is middle class. Yeah.
If you make under 200, you're got a lot of worries.
You're scraping by.
Yeah, you are scraping by in LA with 200K.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I get a little distracted here, but
sorry. Yeah.
Let me mention a couple other things here. The actual 3 ways. Number 1 is scale up the deployment of technologies, and those technologies include, in particular, stand out for delivering value for business and governments to safeguard. One of them is
blockchain.
Big data analytics and
artificial intelligence.
So AI and blockchain to help root out corruption.
This is nothing.
I know. But it's funny how the World Economic Forum are saying that that's how you root out corruption. And it's like, well, why don't we do that with the World Economic Forum first? How about that, folks? Yeah. Number 2, ensure ESG includes good governance. ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance reporting. Yet the G, which is governance, must be treated with a sense of urgency and priority as well. Without effective governance, we may fall short on the delivery of everything else. Let's remember Enron and the 2008 financial crisis. Oh no!
Remember. Nice little nod to Sidney Powell with the Enron, bringing up the Enron.
Yeah. Yeah. So they want anti-corruption. They said anti-corruption represents one of the core metrics for reporting sustainable value creation. What? How? Okay, I want to know, like, the app. These guys go into some app company. All right, use blockchain, use AI. We need an anti-corruption metric. And we're going to call it, we're going to create sustainable value creation points based on it. I mean, what are you talking about? Don't know what any
of that means, but whatever you say.
Sure, yeah. And as you know, what gets measured gets done. What? Okay. We believe these metrics will be a key to achieving the SDGs. Investing more efforts on the G piece helps build a solid integrity culture, which is one of the foundations of fighting corruption. And then number 3, think systemically and work collectively. And
it's just a bunch of jibber jabber.
It's jibber jabber.
It's just a bunch of jibber jabber buzzword nonsense
to justify their complete takeover of the world.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just ridiculous. So anyway, that was the article, and just as a periphery to some of this, real briefly here, this is edxlive.com. There was a headline that said COVID-19 worsening gender-based violence, human trafficking for women, according to the United Nations, and they called it a shadow pandemic.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all.
It doesn't. And
in fact, I think it's the fringy weird folks that could have told you that before all this nonsense happened.
Exactly. It's called it, or tried to tell you kind of moment, because locking all this down is going to make all that stuff worse. And I like how the UN are calling it a shadow pandemic. We got the pandemic, but then we have the what was the other pandemic? The fake news pandemic.
Yeah, the info pandemic.
The info pandemic, disinfo pandemic, and then now we have the shadow pandemic, which is crazy. You must be crazy if you believe in Pizzagate.
By the lockdowns, by the way.
Yeah,
it's the lockdowns that are giving the spike in a lot of the the unfortunate stats in domestic abuse and stuff like that.
Right. And last quick headline update here as a peripheral. This is finextra.com. CCAF, that's the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, World Bank, World Economic Forum, study into COVID-19 impact on fintech, a sneak peek. And they go through the collaborative mission between all these organizations and how they're going to digitize everything. Everything's going digital.
If I never hear the word fintech again, it'll be too soon. I really started hating that word.
I'm going to write you a letter and call it.
No, don't
Love
do
letter to fintech.
Love letter to fintech. That would be a very funny open letter to write.
Yeah, I think you should do it.
You would write it from the perspective of a domestic abuse victim who's in a relationship with fintech.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, fintech is a dumb word that means financial technology.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, anything else on that?
Nope. Just I wish I had more good news, but I think part of this whole process here is to inform people about the reality of the situation we're in, and share some of these articles and point out some of the inconsistencies and the ridiculousness that they're peddling, because it's all published.
Because they think they're getting away with it.
Yeah, they do, but they're not.
Yeah.
Well, they might.
Way.
They might.
Well, they might.
They might, the way things are going. But, we're good. We're grounded. We have Jesus. We're good. But also,
but also, we're taking a break.
We're taking a break.
It's break time. Come on, take a break.
Okie dokie, folks. We're just going to take a quick break. I saw some people actually in the chat asking about support links, and we will teach you about that in just a second. But don't go anywhere, because after this break, where we're going to thank a few producers, in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about the Trump New Age and his new potential moves in regard to the election fraud thing. And I'm going to be going on a beautiful rant about doublespeak and mind control and just the messiness that's going on in the world. And it might pertain to you. So stick around for after the break. We've also got an update on the beast system. You're going to want to hear it, folks. It's very important. But before that, we are going to thank some of our producers. That's right. Producers, you say? I say yay. Yes, indeed. Producers. You might notice that we do not read any ads on this podcast. We don't have any sponsors, no corporate sponsors at least. We are completely free from the shackles of corporate money, which a lot of podcasts can't say. I'm not going to name any names, but it is a viable way to finance, a podcast if you're trying to do it professionally. But we decided a long time ago that gaining your trust and your attention just to turn around and sell it to an advertiser seemed like an inhuman way to try to, break away from the global theology of advertising. And you know what? We're all about being counterculture around here, apparently. And so that's one of the ways that we do it. Now, let's see here. Oh, I've completely lost control of my VR space, so I'm just going to run blind on this one, as always, I guess. So there you go. Instead of luring you, dear listener, in to be advertised to by advertisers, big companies, Swiffer, WetJet, whoever, that incentivize Gons and I to consider you as a number, a piece of cattle, a commodity to be sold and traded on a global market for our own personal gain. Instead, we work on the value for value model, which is very simple. The way it works is we create value by doing the show, doing it pretty often, and we like to think we do a pretty good job with it. And we make it available to you for free. And if you get any value out of what we do, whether it's education or analysis or double speak finger pointery or even just entertainment, whatever it may be, you have the opportunity to become an actual producer of the show. And we have people coming in and doing that in several different ways. One is with your treasure. You can support us at financially if that is in the cards for you. But if supporting us financially is not possible, that's totally fine. There's tons of ways to support the show, like with your time and with your talent. And we will thank some of our time and talent folks in just a second. But right now, we will thank some of our new producers of the show. These are real credits. You can put this on your LinkedIn, put it on your resume, give them our email. We will vouch for you. And first of all, one of the easiest ways to become a producer of the show is to head over to patreon.com/CCNT for Canary Cry News Talk. That's patreon.com/CCNT. There's all sorts of fun levels you can join up with there. And we've got 2 new producers over there, which is very nice. Thank you very much. The first one, Gons, are you ready to thank these producers?
Yeah, I was just looking up. It looks like our Facebook feed was shut down.
Shut down. That's a very specific way to describe that.
Yeah, because we're still connected to Periscope and Twitch and DLive and YouTube. But Facebook, for some reason, is not.
They didn't
connected.
like us talking about the Libra rebrand, probably.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah.
I haven't looked up in a while, but yeah, it seems like maybe that triggered them.
So. Oh, yeah, look at that. It looks like, it looks like it shut down pretty quick, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, Gons, are you ready to thank the producer?
Yes.
Come on. Okay. If I can get control to get to my list. First of all, I want to thank our new producer, Serial King.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, producer
Crunchy.
Serial King. He's not Captain Crunch, Serial King. Next, we have an upgrading producer. That's producer Charlie.
And she updated to $33.
That's right. She's joined the 33 Brigade. That's what I'm calling, instead of us having to say 33 Club and then backpedal every time, I'm just calling it the 33 Brigade.
Nice.
Okay, and that's all of our new producers for the Patreon, patreon.com/CCNT. Now, that's not the only place that you can support us with your finances. A lot of people don't like Patreon. There's a lot of reasons not to like Patreon. That's okay. That's why we have canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. canarycryradio.com/support is another great way to support the show. You've got PayPal options. You can come in with a monthly producership, or if commitment is not your thing, you can come in with a one-time producership in any amount. There's also cryptocurrency. You can read about the Canary Cry roundtable of knights and dames over there. A lot of great information just regarding our philosophy around producing the show as well. So go to canarycryradio.com/support. And Gons, did anybody come in on the PayPal?
I think we had one. We had some recurring. So thank you for all the recurring producers.
Thank you.
We only had one new producer that I could see, and it was Jonathan W.
Ah, thank you very much, producer Jonathan W.
Yep.
Okay, well, that makes the break short.
Yep.
I'm sure there's lots of people happy about that.
Sure.
So thank you to all of our producers. We truly cannot do it without you. And thank you to our monthly recurring producers laying down a stable bed to, help us get through the month. And yeah, I'm not surprised that the producership segment is a little bit shorter. We have had some consistency issues lately. So I take a little bit of consolation in that. But
yeah.
But now is a great time if you've been thinking about helping produce the show, or you just enjoy the show and haven't become a producer yet, or you want to produce another episode, please consider heading over to canarycryradio.com/support. We're moving into the holiday season, so we understand that times can be tight. Don't worry. Don't feel guilty if you can't. But if you got a couple bucks, really anything helps. And it's one of those things. You set your own value on the show. It's one of those systems where with a show that includes advertising.
Oh, you know what? Hold on 1 second. I think I know why we don't have any supporters this week.
Oh, somebody's saying canarycryradio.com/support is not working.
Canarycryradio.com has been down for over a week. That's why.
Oh my gosh.
It's still down. I forgot to
How did
mention
we get any producers?
I am not sure, actually. But that would be a good reason why. Well, I think if they go straight to PayPal, they can do it.
Truth is truth in the chat. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
Well,
we know that. At least I know the issue. It's the fellow that can help us is really slow on the uptake.
Yeah. Well, here's what I will say. If you have PayPal, you can just do it directly through PayPal. I believe our PayPal address thing. Oh, on the screen right now, there is a QR code.
Yeah.
Aim your smartphone camera at that QR code and press the little link and it'll take you to support us. I hope. Also, if you just have PayPal and you want to figure it out yourself, our email is canarycryradio@gmail.com. That's the associated email. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We got to get that working.
I know.
There's people out there who want to produce the show. We got to let them produce the show. Okay. So there you go. If you got PayPal, you can do it all on your own. canarycryradio@gmail.com is our PayPal thing there. Okay. But finances is not the only way. Your treasure is not the only way to support the show. You can also become a producer by giving us your time or your talent. Gons, tell us more.
You can support the show with your time and talent. And one of the ways to do it is with a jingle. We've gotten jingle submissions every once in a while, and they're all fantastic. We just ask that you do them as show-related content, although we do love past content that you may have produced that has to do with topics of the show. We want something a little more specific. We're greedy. Or maybe just very specific.
Or just more particular. Something that has to do with the show. It's a great opportunity when something comes down the pike, down the line. Like, for instance, Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. We're talking a lot about them. We're going to be talking more about them in the future. Somebody out there might want to make a little jingle for the World Economic Forum. So whenever we talk about them, we can play that little jingle. It's a fun way for people to help out with the show and get a wide variety of creative input into the production of the show. Some people, they tell us all the time that the jingles are their favorite part of the show, which, I don't know how to feel about that, but I'm glad they're enjoying something.
Forget all the part where they talk. Let's just have a series of jingles.
Let's just play the jingles. We can do the condensed version, Canary Cry Condensed, where it's just a bunch of jingles.
Well, they'll be happy to hear.
No talking at all.
Yeah, no talking. They'll be happy to hear our little jingle for the art.
One art, please.
And we always love our artists coming in. This week, or at least for this episode, we only have a couple pieces of art to share with you. The first one, actually, it's a pair from Grace. And hey, you know what? These quotes, I think it's from me because I think it's from the last episode and I was doing it solo. The first quote here, I tried to make the robot seem more human. That was pertaining to the Flippy update with the creepy looking... Yes.
He tried so valiantly.
He did, but no go. And it's a good rendering of it because the robot is written in kind of a mechanical type font. And the human part has like different human aspects with each letter. So you got the skin color,
skin tones,
hair,
eyeball, lips,
fingers.
Fingers. Yeah. Okay. Woo.
Doing well. So
a little
very well
there
done.
That Grace got a little blue for a second, but she didn't. Good job, Grace.
No, good job, Grace. Second one from Grace, actually. This one is, hey, let me go. Look it up on the Splinternet.
Whoa.
And that's a real thing, by the way, Basil. I don't know if you realize that, but the Splinternet is a thing happening with the world. The internet
that's the splitting of the internet, right?
Between nations and corporations. Yep. So very
good.
Good.
Downfall.
Very good. And one more piece of art. Thank you, producer Grace, for those quotes. Keep them coming. And of course, producer Allie. This one is for you, Basil. She made Monty Ford tryouts
Yeah, this is great.
And
of course, we're all mourning the recent passing of my cancer-laden cat. She had a peaceful go at it at home, which we are very happy about. But yes, we are taking Monty the Fourth tryouts. And Allie, great job here. Looks like we've got a couple of contestants. On the left, we have Jerboa, which is like one of those little kangaroo mice, I think. Yeah, is what I'm looking at. Yeah, okay, this is cute. I could get it. I could cuddle that. Next, we've got a tufted deer. I think I've seen one of these in a zoo. If I remember correctly, they're kind of like these weird, tiny little dog deer. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about cleaning up deer poop. I don't know if I could convince it. And on the right, we have an armadillo. Which I think is pretty. I'm pretty fascinated by the idea of having an armadillo. There's a couple of issues. Well, first of all, I will say armadillo for a long time. I mean, when I had a favorite animal, it was an armadillo. I just thought they were so cool. So I'd be into that. I'm pretty sure you can get leprosy from armadillos. I'll have to fact check that though.
I just pulled up the Jerboa and some pictures of it, and wow, that thing, it's cute in a creepy kind of way. I mean, they're cute, but they're I don't know how to feel about
monkey like Justin Bieber.
Oh yeah. There you
go.
A
monkey for about 4 months, I think. But anyways, Allie, great job. I really appreciate your ability to switch from doing perfect renditions of Joe Biden and Obama into really doing a beautiful job drawing a jerboa, a tufted deer, and an armadillo. I'll keep everybody posted on which one of those three contestants get to live in my house rent-free.
Fantastic. Great job, producer Allie. Keep him coming.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for, the timestamps. I needed to thank Jade Bouncerson once again. I think she was the one that did the timestamps in the last.
Jade Bouncerson.
Yeah.
I have not heard of this producer before. Is she new?
I think.
Or he? I don't know.
I think it is somebody that we know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, somebody that we know. Yeah. Very much for giving us the timestamps. This helps people kind of jump around the episode. You know, if they're new to the show, they want to go directly to a certain subject or topic matter, then they can do that without listening to all the jibber jabber. I know a lot of people love jumping around. So there you go. And a very important part of the Canary Cry ecosystem there, making the show better, making the community better. So thank you to all of our producers, whether it's with your treasure, your time, or your talent. We appreciate it very much. And we could not do what we do if it weren't for our producers. Remember, I guess our support page is down right now, but we have patreon.com/CCNT, as well as if you got PayPal, our PayPal email address is just canarycryradio@gmail.com.
Yep. And make sure you check out canarycrymerchperch.com and get yourself some swag.
Yeah. I saw a question. Do we know when Merch Perch stuff is shipping? We do not know that.
Yeah, we don't.
It's out of our control. Producer Dust, if you're listening and you have any update on that, send us an email. Let us know if we can tell anybody anything. I think it's from I think it runs through a manufacturing company. So I assume they have their act together, and you should have it before Christmas, although I just can't make those promises. I'll have to talk to producer Dust.
Yep. Keep that in mind.
So yeah, head over to canarycrymerchperch.com to get your Canary Cry merchandise. It is a family-run operation. A producer of the show runs it. Everything is sold at cost to make it the most affordable for our dear Canarians. And you do get the opportunity to tip the webmaster, which please do because it costs him money to run the thing. As well as you can tip the artist, or you can tip Gonz and myself. There you go, canarycrymerchperch.com. Woo!
Yes, it's wake-up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
Okay, folks, it's time to wake up. Now, I wanted to start out with this article from WND.com. And Gons, hit me with a little bit of a Trump jingle.
We will launch a new age.
That's right, folks. We're launching the new age. WND.com, which is a famously right-leaning outlet. But I've seen this article or versions of this article or claims from this article floating around, and I really feel like I need to discuss it. I'll read through it to kind of give you an idea, but there's a bigger conversation to be had. The article is titled "Treasonous Enemies Within. 3-star General Pushes Trump to Use Emergency Powers." Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, U.S. Air Force retired, said in a no-holds-barred interview that he doesn't believe the courts are likely to come through for President Trump. Despite massive amounts of evidence of widespread irregularities, many judges appear either unable or unwilling to sort through allegations of rigged voting machines and dozens of affidavits from eyewitnesses to ballot stuffing, denial of Republican poll watchers from observing the process, evidence of more votes cast in hundreds of precincts than were registered to vote, and a host of other irregularities. Now, keep in mind, right off the bat here, it's not that judges are unable or unwilling. A lot of those court proceedings are getting hung up on the standing issue, where those who are bringing the court filings do not have standing to actually carry the trial through. But let's keep going. The general placed the burden squarely on President Trump to use the emergency powers at his disposal and put down what he described as a coup d'etat in progress. I do want to mention coup d'etat is being thrown around quite a bit. Historically and implicitly, coup d'etats are sort of implicitly a military forced activity to change an administration. So that's one thing that, again, we're trying to step outside of the left-right paradigm. I know we have a lot of people who support Trump and want to see some stuff happen with this chicanery, but calling it a coup d'etat is just vulgar. It just isn't a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
To have a coup d'etat, you need the military involved. It needs to be forced. This is more trickery, if indeed the facts about the election or the allegations about the election fraud are true. It's more trickery, not coup d'etat. But we'll be hearing more about coup d'etat as we go.
Well, I mean, I will just to sort of not counter that point necessarily, but it would be interesting to note, because if, aspects of the CIA or the FBI or other organizations are involved in part of that election, fraud type of stuff, then would that be considered military? The military-industrial complex?
I mean, you can call it a lot of things. And what's going on with this coup d'etat thing is it's an easy reference phrase to use because a lot of people, there's just not another word for what may be happening. But a coup d'etat explicitly is by force. I mean, with all coup d'etats throughout history, there are soldiers storming the palace. That is what a coup d'etat is. It's military. It almost always is somebody, it's the military using military force to oust some sort of leader. That is the historical framework for a coup d'etat. And I mean, nobody's going into the White House with guns to de-seat Trump. That would be a technical, historically accurate coup d'etat. But the reason I even point this out, it's kind of a myopic thing to focus on, which I understand, and a lot of people don't care. But the reason why I do care and why I'm making a big deal about it is because this matters. The rhetoric being used, I love pointing out manipulative rhetoric in all things. And of course, usually it's HuffPost or CNN or, someone you love to hate that I pointed out. But I would not be stepping outside of the left-right paradigm if I did not do the same thing to conservative-leaning outlets. So the use of coup d'etat to describe what's going on, whether it's on purpose or not, is not an accurate description of what's going on. But
so,
that's
as Phil Parker put it. Oh, sorry. It's not a coup d'etat. It's a coup. Yeah. Little Kaya's
yeah,
sitting
you
on my
should
lap.
just call it a coup. Like, it's okay to just call it a coup. It's not a coup d'etat by force. Okay, moving on. Here's a quote. When you coordinate 6 to 10 states using cyber warfare, again, kind of an exaggeration, but okay, to change the outcome of the election in favor of whoever you want, these are treasonous acts. I'll agree they may be treasonous. McInerney said in a November 29th interview with Brennan House of Worldview Weekend TV. Not just fraudulent acts. Quote, these are not just fraudulent acts, they are treasonous acts because it means changing the government, the general said. And when you add Russia, China, and Iran foreigners into it, you complicate it and make it even more treasonous. So cyber warfare and Dominion voting systems, which we're talking about in Georgia, Michigan, and several other states, Pennsylvania as well, using Hammer and Scorecard, which are ballot manipulation software attacks. Plus, has anyone seen the Justice Department or FBI in any of this? That is very worrisome. I agree with everything you just said. McInerney is not just any retired general making these claims. He's highly decorated, having flown 400 combat missions over Vietnam. He was in charge of NORAD for Alaska and had, NORAD, and had top security clearance with responsibility for the U.S. nuclear arsenal. He spent 16 years as a military analyst with Fox News. Quote, he is not only a patriot, he is a historian, and he understands the massive threat now faced by America, House said. McInerney said the fraud seen on Election Day could easily be repeated in Georgia to steal the 2 U.S. Senate seats up for election there on January 5th, giving Democrats full control of the government. McInerney said that after listening to President Trump talk with Fox News' Maria Bartiromo on Sunday morning, he was concerned that the president sounded kind of down. That is concerning as well. That worries me. When Trump is not all amped up and he seems worried, that worries me because I have yet to see anything get that guy down. Quote, what startled me was he kept talking about fraudulent votes. And then I heard Rudy Giuliani talking about fraudulent votes. It's not fraudulent votes. The American people must understand we're talking about treason. McInerney said President Trump must be compelled by his supporters to, quote, honor his oath of office and employ the tools available to him to quash the insurrection that he believes is in progress. He said U.S. Marshals should have immediately seized the voting machines in Georgia and every battleground state as soon as it became apparent that ballot numbers were skewed in favor of Joe Biden. According to attorney Sidney Powell, speaking in an interview with Lou Dobbs, the Dominion Systems machines were set to give Biden a weighed count of 1.25 votes for everyone he received, while Trump's votes were set at 0.75% of each vote. 0.75%. I don't know if that's what they were meaning to say, but of each vote he received. This means that 2.7% of the votes were switched from Trump to Biden in multiple battleground states. Massive fraud was also reported with the mail-in ballots in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. At a public hearing on Monday held by state legislators in Arizona, witnesses reported their state had 1.9 million mail-in ballots that were separated from envelopes without any signatures that could be verified. Similar reports dripped out of Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. just to point it out, not that it matters that much, but they say the ballots without any signatures that could be verified. Phrasing it that way, without any signatures, makes you think that they had no signatures, or at least that maybe some of them had no signatures, when in fact the signature verification, I'm not too convinced with verifying signature verification. I know that my signature almost never looks exactly the same. I'm not even sure if signature verification, that's such an archaic way to verify things. But anyways, quote, we had the director of the CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agents, Chris Krebs, who was fired 2 weeks ago by President Trump, say this was a perfect election. Please, said McInerney, this was the worst election in the history of any democracy. And he comes out and says everything was perfect. So you can see the work of the deep state, which is complicit in this treason. Seems reasonable. The retired 3-star general was very specific, and here's where it gets a little worrisome, in what he said Trump must do to put down the coup. He must invoke the executive order that Trump signed on September 12, 2018, allowing the president to declare a state of emergency related to foreign intervention in U.S. elections. Quote, he has got to declare a national emergency. He should also use the Insurrection Act, which has a lot of concerns about it, but that's okay, because we have an insurrection right now in this country when you look at Antifa and BLM, plus other groups. He must suspend habeas corpus, as President Lincoln did in 1861 and Franklin Roosevelt did in 1942 when World War II started. McInerney said a silent coup is being perpetrated in plain view. It could turn violent, but so far it remains bloodless. The Chinese military doctrine of warfare includes 6 stages, yada, yada, yada. So the thing that I really wanted to point out was suspending habeas corpus, as President Lincoln did in 1861 and Franklin Roosevelt did in 1942 when World War II started. What he's referring to here is martial law and military tribunals. Now, martial law, obviously we know what that is. That's a military occupation of the U.S. military on U.S. soil, which is concerning for a lot of reasons. That's how you get forced vaccinations. That's how you get curfews being held up by U.S. soldiers. That's how you get a lot of stuff we don't like the idea of. Habeas corpus, suspending habeas corpus, also a big issue, referring to military tribunals. Which we'll talk about in a second. And he refers to President Lincoln making this move, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR did it in World War II. And here's where I have a problem, because what we have here is, a very respected guy calling for an absolutist military action on American soil. And this is not very cool for a couple of reasons. But first of all, let me mention President Lincoln did do this. He did it during the Civil War, specifically to deal with Confederate spies and Confederate rabble-rousers in the North, who were explicitly deemed as enemies of the Union. And FDR did this as well, specifically to deal with Nazi spies that were on U.S. soil. Now, that is way different than the situation that we are in now. Right now, there is no individual person that is not an American citizen that can be tried in this manner, and especially because None of these people are congressionally approved adversaries of the United States. With President Lincoln, you had a congressionally approved enemy of the Union, which were Confederate spies. And in FDR's case, you had congressionally approved enemies of the United States, Nazi spies. Who, it makes sense to sort of suspend the rules when you are in an actual war with lives on the line and, American troops whose lives are at stake because of an acting foreign entity. The problem we have right now is there is no official enemy in this case. And this is really worrying. And I get it if you're a Trump supporter and you're frustrated by all the shenanigans going on. We're all frustrated. I'm very frustrated as well. But to give President Trump the A-OK to hold military tribunals in a peacetime situation when there's not actual individual foreign actors that we're grabbing and trying to, prosecute, this is very dangerous just as a precedent-setting conversation. You may feel very strongly that there is, foreign interference, and there very well may be. I'm not saying there isn't, but there's not an individual, there's not like, hey, we got this guy, Vladimir, not Putin, but this other Vladimir, and he was sneaking in and he was fiddling with voting machines, and we got this other Chinese guy and this other Iranian guy, and we got to get him. We got to get him. There's really none of that. All the enemies in this case are basically Democratic politicians. Now, if you set a precedent where Trump is allowed to suspend habeas corpus and hold military tribunals against political, I don't even know what to call them, but just other politicians. This is a very, very dangerous precedent, and I'm very concerned with how, many of our brothers and sisters on the conservative side of the political spectrum, where once conservatives were, the biggest enemy was martial law, where the worst thing that could happen would be military tribunals and martial law and the suspension of habeas corpus, the very foundation of the American justice system. That just seemed like nonsense that Obama would do or some other evil Democrat president. They are begging for Trump to take military action on American citizens right now. And it is really concerning to me. And, I would love to hear if you have different ideas about this, Gons, I'll give you a second. But this is really, talk about doublespeak. Somehow they have twisted the conservative values from small government and worrying about democratic military tyrants like Obama or potentially Biden or things like this. And they are begging Trump to do the exact same thing, institute martial law, suspend habeas corpus, and, basically take wartime actions in what we are currently in, which is one of the longest periods or one of the most peaceful periods of American history. And, it's easy to forget that. But as far as new wars and new military actions going on, Trump's presidency has been one of the most peaceful. And I would just hate to have that change, and especially as American citizens as the targets. Because here's one of the biggest things is precedent. If Trump sets a precedent where he can suspend habeas corpus, institute military tribunals, really take, for better, for worse. I hate to sound like some sort of wacko here, but that basically would make him a military tyrant. And we're so afraid of Obama or Biden or whoever becoming a military tyrant. But begging Trump to do it is not the solution to our problems right now. And Yeah, I don't know. That's it. Because he set that precedent in 2024. If he does it, and if indeed it keeps him in office for another 4 years, you might be celebrating for this 4 years, but you will not be celebrating in 2024 when, I don't know, a Democrat gets in and says, oh, well, now we are calling fundamentalist Christians a threat to American society, so I'm going to be suspending habeas corpus, and I am going to be instituting martial law, and we will be trying fundamentalist Christians because they're terrorists and bad people. Well, don't worry, we're going to be using military tribunals. And you go, what? You can't do that. That's crazy. Well, Trump did it 4 years ago. Why can't I do it? And I think, look, that might be a bit of like worst case scenario. I agree. I am thinking worst case scenario. But when you are giving the total public go ahead for the government at all, no matter who's in charge of it, to suspend habeas corpus, which is the foundation of the Western judicial system, and get the military involved in a time of peace against American citizens, this is not a precedent you're going to want to set when somebody else, not your guy, is fighting for, whatever they're going to be fighting for. And so there's my rant. I felt very strongly about this. I talked about this with a few people and had to go in and do a lot of research. But I'm just telling you, if you are a non-left-right paradigm person, it's one thing if you're a diehard, Republican and you just want Republicans to win no matter what. That's just what you're going to do. But if you realize that the left-right paradigm are two different sides of the same coin and both are working to tighten control of normal individual citizens trying to live their lives, this is not something that you want to be in favor of.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you mostly on what you stated. I think there's a few things you mentioned that are triggering for certain people depending on the audience.
Sure.
But for the most part, I tend to agree with you. I think what we have to understand that we're in this time right now where the advent of technology, the advent of the internet, it has created a climate or an atmosphere where definitions of words don't mean the same thing anymore, because a lot of it is a semantics issue. When you started bringing up some, congressional type of definitions of.
I disagree. I don't think that's semantics, but I'll let you make your case before I rip you apart.
No. So okay. So what I'm trying to say is that this 3-star general, number one, we don't know all the information that they see, right? So
totally.
we are only given what we are given through media outlets, which are by the day more polarized one way or the other. So it's very difficult for us who understand the right-left paradigm to get any kind of balance, or we have to take what we get from news sources that are continually moving further and further apart. Mm-hmm. So that's one point. Secondly, this 3-star general, for him to justify this, he has to. I don't think he's just saying it because we might lose the Republicans might lose the election. He has to have some kind of intel that would suggest foreign actors that are truly being involved here in some kind of election meddling or whatever it is. We've heard about China, we've heard about Iran, we've heard about the Frankfurt servers, the Dominion being a Canadian company, and so there's all kinds of international people involved. You're right in that they're not officially stated as like enemies of the state, that we are at war with or anything like that. So I understand your concerns for just allowing a nilly-willy, like free, hey,
It's akin to the war on drugs or the war on terrorism, where there's no stated clear enemy, which, as we've seen, let's just take the war on terror. As we've seen, when there's not a congressionally approved enemy of the United States, then you can just do whatever you want and just call it the War on Terror, which has been one of the most reprehensible, military campaigns in U.S. history.
Right. Yeah. So, and we've reported on this channel
for American
opinions.
Citizens, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to defend other people. I'm just saying for Americans, the War on Terror has taken away more of American citizens' rights than any country has ever attempted to do on American soil.
Yeah, and a lot of it was done, I think, on purpose to destabilize, use the American military arm to destabilize other nations to submit.
Right.
And at the same time, destroy the freedoms of our country. It's
a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a
our people
rock
know
killing too. Yeah. So, what was I was getting to another point there.
You're talking about the semantics.
The semantics, but yeah. So we've talked about, and we've reported on this channel how we're people's opinions of how we're in this Cold War with China and this kind of thing, and maybe there's. And I'm just trying to play, if you want to call it, the devil's advocate for this 3-star general, and trying to think what would he actually, because he must understand at some level that if you allow this rabbit out of the hat, then it could backfire like crazy with whoever. If Biden even takes office in January, it can backfire in months. Like 2021 could be a horrible year for people that want to stand for the Constitution and freedom and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and look, I'm not sorry. Keep your thought. Don't lose it. But yeah, when I'm talking about 2024, if Trump does do this and instigates all the stuff we're talking about and still loses, which is possible, it's not impossible, then Biden takes control in January. And then again, precedent setting has precedent and will probably already be in a state of martial law, and you could just go straight into forced vaccinations or whatever. This is the worst possible thing in any case.
Yeah. But my point about the technology was that warfare in general looks different.
That's true.
In a sense, and the article even mentioned the cyber warfare type of thing. And again, it's hard because there's no language. Warfare.
It's hard to identify the enemy.
Identify the enemy, number one, but also define exactly what a cyber warfare looks like.
Yeah.
Because the public at large doesn't really understand it. You might understand it if you're a techie person, but then you fall into the trap of, we're just building a technocracy. We're in this civil war between technocrats, people that understand what's going on technically.
Yeah.
And so I think there is something going on between the white hats and the bad actors and hackers and stuff like that. That's been going on for a while. And so, if Trump does this is the one thing he can do that if he does do something like this and pulls it off and he's in office for another 4 years, it'd be very hard to do. But if there are enough Republicans in the Senate and, enough influence, strong arming the House and everything, he could sort of, amend certain things to update how certain pieces of legislation.
Needs to be done either way.
It needs to be done either way, but he might have the ability to do that or have some time to implement that so that it can't be abused, moving forward. So maybe that's the grand plan of Trump.
That's possible. But you want to hear my most recent crazy conspiracy theory?
Trump is a reptilian.
That's
launching
not
a new
conspiracy
age
theory. That's
truth.
Known. Yeah. Okay. No, my new, and it only came when I was like reading through this and breaking it down. I mean, how brilliant of a conspiracy would it have been if Trump sabotaged his own election and framed whoever needs to be framed to get public support for basically becoming a military dictator?
Is that from your LibJoe friend?
No, I just thought about that, because I'm just trying to look at all angles. I mean, you can't, you can't really trust any of the red or the blue or either thing. They're all in it for power, and in the end, they're all working towards the same goal. But I mean, if there was a conspiracy where Trump sabotaged his own election and made it all wonky enough. Because, I mean, he really hasn't done a whole lot. There hasn't been a whole lot done. There's been attempts at a few court filings that haven't gone through. He hasn't done a whole lot to fight this. Mm-hmm. But what if he sabotaged his own election to get support? And maybe he does, maybe he would have won the election. It's very possible that he has more support than, he definitely has more support than the media would let on. But if he knew that if he could make it look like a totally botched election, that his supporters, which are probably the majority, would not only let him forcefully stay in the White House, but give him the public approval to basically turn into a military dictator, turn into, instigate martial law, suspend habeas corpus, execute emergency powers, which basically does make the president a king, which is the exact power that I think he would really enjoy.
Yeah.
That's not crazier than a lot of, conspiracy theories.
Sure. Yeah. In my opinion, the agenda for these elections, whether you're on the right or the left, it doesn't matter. The agenda for this election was to ruin the confidence of the public in terms of a U.S. election in general. And if you're thinking about a Hegelian dialectic, I think this was even stated by some, ex-CIA or something, saying that, 2020, our goal is to just ruin confidence. And if you're thinking about the technocrats and what they would do, what the move is for them, they would want destruction. They would want distrust and falling apart of the traditional way of doing things, because like with money, like with anything that's going digital, we're seeing changes, and we're seeing sort of the inability for certain ways things happened to adapt. Because here's the thing, and I think there's some merit to this idea of Trump knowing that it's going to, fall apart. Because if Trump really wanted to do something and make a really honest election, he definitely had the ability to put in some executive order or whatever.
He's been calling fraud on the election for 4 years. He's been assuming that there was going to be fraud. You would think that he would have put some things in place to mitigate it a bit beforehand.
Sure.
And we've heard about the watermark and stuff, but have yet to see anything come from it.
Yeah, I don't think it was. But again, there is technology that is way ahead of the stuff that we're using in the elections the way they are, and technology that would not compromise certain aspects of privacy and things like that, and still allow both sides of the right left to sort of hold each other accountable to keep things transparent in an election.
The theater. The theater of the left-right paradigm. It would make more sense. My Trump conspiracy would make more sense regarding Biden being the nominee for the Democrats. It makes no sense. He's the least presidential guy we've ever seen.
Well, we know that.
And it looks
really
like
Kamala.
a wackadoodle choice for the Democrats. So it would make more sense him being chosen if it was all, some big. And again, we know that the president is just a puppet, basically, for forces that are bigger than we could probably comprehend. But yeah, anyways, so there you go. I just really want people not to get too worked up and get too excited about martial law.
That point, I will say, has been one of the most interesting things about the Trump presidency. Is the turnaround of people,
the switcheroo,
that were so against the New World Order and saying that, hey, there's going to be a military takeover of the United States. All those people seem to have been like, oh, but it's okay if Trump does it because he's fighting for us. And that switcheroo has been very fascinating to watch. So I'll agree with you 100% on that front, because it really was.
It was a big red flag for me.
Yeah, obviously it's. anytime that kind of rhetoric becomes
ideological 180.
Yeah. Anytime it flips like that, you got to question, like, wait a minute, what's the true agenda here? And, part of the problem also is that most people that are for the Trump martial law type of situation, in the public anyway, are likely not those who have been studying the New World Order. Likely not looking, and probably woke up to some realities of stuff in the last 4 years, because of the whole, Pizzagate and QAnon, whatever their path was to learning about some of the corruption and the darkness and the Satanism and all that. Yeah, sure. But it doesn't justify some of the moves that you would make, especially in America, because it is a limited term.
Yeah.
It would make sense if he's like, oh, he's gonna reign forever, like MAGA forever, and like Alex Jones said, we're gonna have statues of Trump on Mars. He's gonna rule till he's 180 or whatever. Like, okay, maybe. I mean, even in that case, there's some problems, obviously, but you can't just let every cat out of the bag, and to do your own thing. You're just it's a two-way street here, and it's been designed that way, But maybe that's what it is too. We had that conversation with Justin and Westfall last week about the belly of the beast and how the United States was created to be the new Atlantis. And now that the aspects of the new Atlantis have gone worldwide, it's time to sort of rein it in. We've allowed the quote unquote freedom to take shape and to allow the development of this technocratic society. And so now we can tear down that aspect that brought us here and we can reel it in. And now we have our completed new Atlantis worldwide. And part of the thing, I was thinking about this, not to change the subject entirely, but sort of shifting away from, do you have any other points regarding this?
Real quick. I just want to end it on, and you got to remember that in the end, God is in charge of the whole thing. Yeah. He appoints the leaders, whether we like it or not. And in biblical times, he appointed psychopathic, murderous kings and other weirdos, and he appointed good guys and bad guys, and it's a lot of, you just got to remember there are purposes going on that we couldn't possibly predict. And so, if you're looking for a little bit of peace about it, there's a lot of stories in the Bible where God put in a guy in leadership. I'm not comparing either of the candidates specifically to the psychopathic, murderous kings of the Middle East in the Bible, but no matter where you land on that subject, God's in control and he's got a plan. And so that should give you at least a little bit of a breath of, give you a sigh of relief before we all die of stress heart attacks about this whole thing.
I like how we can play the chameleon when it comes to being like a godly citizen, because you can say like, hey, God's in control of Trump, and the Republicans will be like, yay. And then you can say, hey, God is in control of Biden, and all the liberals will be like, that's right, this is a godly pick.
Yes, well, that's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing about admitting that God's in control no matter what. There's not much you can argue about it.
Yeah. The point I was going to mention in context to this is in context to you're mentioning the election, the story, and all this, but I was thinking about this with the virus, COVID-19 virus, and I was trying to do some research and figure out if there are any nations or any corner of the world that, as we know it or as we have understood it, that doesn't know about the coronavirus or the quote unquote pandemic. Mm-hmm. And there were some stories that came out of like some pretty small nations that came to an airport in Germany or something, and they were told about it. And they were like, oh, we had no idea that there was a pandemic going on. People that probably just don't read the news every day or whatever.
Sure.
But it made me think that this pandemic, you want to call it that, is worldwide, right? Everybody in the world presumably knows about it. 7.5 billion people, or most of them anyway, are aware of it, at least in theory, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was thinking about Matthew 24:14 because it's a passage that said that the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And I thought, wow, isn't it interesting how the reality of the coronavirus, whether it's, obviously there is some kind of virus, but it's not as deadly as people are making it out to be. But everybody knows about it. We had a whole lockdown to pretty much every nation, some kind of order by the government to put on masks and all this kind of stuff. I found it fascinating that the idea of a pandemic perpetrated by whoever, doesn't even matter. Every government reacted. This happened at a time when communications across the world are instantaneous, and it probably would have been different. Like, I'm wondering during the whole Black Plague and all the other plagues and stuff we had in the past.
Yeah, I mean, even like 70 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. People on the other side of the world probably had no idea that there was like a raging pandemic going on in the United States, whatever. No idea. So it's very interesting to think that in this time we have this communication system all around the world. Everybody's involved in it. They know about it. And if they're able to communicate the threat of some kind of virus all around the world and shut it all down, are we nearing a time, or have we even passed a moment in time when the gospel has been at least reached to every corner? I mean, maybe there's some tribes still in Sub-Saharan
one
Africa,
island
or some island out there. Sure,
that missionary got shot with a bow and arrow. I don't mean to laugh, but it was. It didn't
intense.
Work out very well. I don't know if they know about the virus or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Other than that, and they can be taught about it, obviously, if you're being visited by, different types of people. But I just thought it was an interesting thought experiment to talk about, hey, are we in the end times? Well, go to Matthew 24:14, ask yourself if the gospel has been preached around the whole world, and pretty close. I would say the method.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
If the news of the coronavirus reached every corner of the earth, then there's a good chance that the news of Jesus Christ has reached every corner
either
of the earth as well.
Or we have the capability to do it now.
Right.
And that would imply that we're very close to all kinds of eschatological things to unfold. And just to finish that thought up with the story here, and then we'll wrap up the episode because we're going pretty long here.
Yeah, so we had a lot to make up for.
Sure. This is a quick story regarding the beast system, and here's the jingle.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
This is Nikkei, or Asia.Nikkei.com. Asian countries build data fortresses to protect new national assets. Very interesting thing here. And this is why I was bringing up the technological angle and the reform and all that kind of stuff that needs to take place, even with the American, the Constitution. Maybe not. I don't know. It's going to be difficult because you want to keep some of the implied aspects of quote unquote freedom that the United States stands for. But at the same time, the application has to be, you got to be very careful how you amend certain aspects of that. But the article states, as companies place greater and greater value on big data as an essential part of their operations, nations are beginning to look at the information, which runs from home addresses to consumer behavior, as a new national resource.
Yeah.
With this rise, countries
That's what I've been saying.
I know. With this rise, countries are starting to build their own bastions through legislation to hoard the asset. But tech companies argue these types of data fortresses will stifle innovation. Asian countries have been some of the most active in this movement. Of the 8 countries requiring to localize the storage of data collection with their borders, 5 are in the region. The latest battleground is in India. Quote, we are concerned that some provisions in the bill would hamper the country's economic growth, constrain the ability of companies' operations in the market to innovate. A group of the 30 companies, including Such big names as Microsoft and Siemens said in a September letter addressing a set of data regulations being considered by Parliament. And there's a little chart here. Or
you know what I love about this?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a map from the European Center for International Political Economy.
Mm-hmm.
And do you notice anything weird about this map?
Yeah. The United States is on the right side of the map.
Yes, it's a map from Europe. So they put Europe on the far western edge because in Europe is the West.
Yeah.
And the whole the continents of North and South America are all the way to the east, which is really strange. I've never seen a map laid out like this before.
Yeah. And it shows the Asian nations and Russia and that whole big body of land. They have introduced regulations requiring domestic storage of data. And then there are very little who are preparing to introduce regulations. It's really not that much going on there. And then the transfer abroad of personal data and other information, the United States, Europe, Australia, parts of South America. And let me just go on a little bit more and then we'll wrap it up. The framework would require businesses to store data on servers within the country while heavily restricting cross-border transfers. The rules would cover not only personal information, but also industrial data, leaving businesses alarmed at the prospect of being unable to use their own data freely. And it goes on here.
I love this. Can you play the called it? Do you have that ready? Because this is making me feel good. For those longtime listeners, you've heard my rants about how big data is now, being considered a national commodity like oil or corn or whatever. It's no longer this free flying big data flying around the earth thing. It was the whole problem with TikTok and Trump forcing the sale of the American use of TikTok is because sending your data to another country is akin to letting them pump the oil right out from under your feet.
Called it.
Thank you.
The hoarding of data is symbolic of a broader fracturing of the internet, the Splinternet.
Oh my gosh.
Naoki Hirao, founder of Japanese startup Planetway, was struck by the use of the term Splinternet at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos in January. But Hirao sees this state of affairs as temporary. Quote, "The nature of the data economy is that the more data you cross together, the more competitive you become," he said. "Even countries that try to fence in their data will connect with the outside again as they look for more." It's kind of an interesting point. But I think it'll be regulated or at least filtered in a way, right?
Well, notice how this is framed in... basically, he's framing it in the merchants of the world framework.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning companies should be able to live globally and we don't need any national borders when it comes to our data. It's very, one world ordery, but giving the power to corporations, which, as we read at the top of the show with the World Economic Forum, considering stakeholders being private corporations being the most important actors in the globalization. So there's a lot of twists, and this is a great find, Gons. You found a great puzzle piece.
Yeah, thank you. The quote here: "In order to address them, humanity needs a digital home, a space where countries, citizens, and companies can work together to tackle policy issues and ensure that technology remains at the service of humanity," he wrote, as opposed to what? Non-humans?
Dogs.
Dogs?
We can't let these poodles take all our data.
But what's interesting about this, data fortresses, I've talked about this passage before, but in Daniel 11, it talks about the Antichrist, the king who exalts himself. And in verse between 36 and 39, it says, "Then the king will do as he pleases and will exalt and magnify himself above every god. And he will speak monstrous things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been decreed must be accomplished. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, nor for the one desired by women, nor for any other god, because he will magnify himself above them all," which is one of the main character traits of the man of sin, Antichrist. And then verse 38, "And in their place he will honor the god of fortresses, a god his fathers did not know. Right, so this is like a new god that wasn't around in the ancient times, and with gold, silver, precious stones, and riches. He will attack the strongest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him, making them rulers over many, and distributing the land for a price. So when you're talking about data and nations trying to create these fortresses, I mean, think about the power of this Antichrist figure. It's very interesting because when this was written, right, centuries ago, you know, they're probably thinking, a lot of the people looking at it were probably thinking like, oh, they're going to have amazing castles. You know, they'll have a crazy army of horses and chariots. Yeah. And yeah, that's probably partly true with an actual military. But also, as data becomes this national asset, and we ourselves as citizens are kind of we are the oil wells, right? Because we produce all the data.
Right. Yeah.
It becomes very interesting to honor it. If there was a man who comes and galvanizes a particular nation or particular company, whatever it is, and takes over everything to the point where they are able to distribute the land for a price. You know, like, hey, okay, you want to live here, you got to do this. And this is very much in line with the mark of the beast type of situation where you can't buy or sell without the mark and without the worship of the beast. So I just thought it was very interesting. And I thought the move for Asian countries to build data fortresses to protect new national assets, it just hits me in a very, I don't know what the word is. I don't know. I don't want to misapply the Bible. That's not what I'm trying to do. But when I read passages like that about the man of sin, which is as I understand it, a yet future event, and then I read, news headlines like this, it just makes me think like, wow, man, we are really building we are going into some very uncharted territory when it comes to warfare, when it comes to how military operates, how people operate, how people worship, what it means to worship, all that kind of stuff. Pretty prophetic is all I'll say.
I think you nailed it, man. Wow, what a great couple of rants after the break here.
Yeah, we need
the second
more.
Half of the show will just turn into rant hour.
Rantville.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, well, I got nothing to add. That was great.
Cool.
Let's got anything else?
No, we've been going for almost over 2.5 hours. I think we're
good. Nice long show here. So, okie dokie. Well, that just about does it, folks. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. We are so glad to be back, and hopefully we'll be able to stay on a consistent schedule of at least until 2021. I know we have Christmas to deal with, stuff like that, but we're going to be doing our best. I'm not going to be traveling to California anytime soon, so I should be staying put like I always should have been. And remember, folks, we are back in action. Our canarycryradio.com/support is dead. It's dead right now. So if you'd like to become a producer of the show, we got another show coming on Friday, December 4th. 2 days, folks. Friday, December 4th will be our next show sometime between noon and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we would just love it if somebody out there wanted to become a producer of that show. It's kind of nice when you have less producers. I mean, it's not nice for a lot of reasons, but you get more attention when you do produce those shows. So considering that canarycryradio.com/support is down, you can still support us, become a producer of the show. You got that little QR code in the top right-hand corner of the broadcast right now. If you're watching live, you can just point your smartphone at that, and it will give you the camera. Turn on your camera, point it at that. It'll bring you to our PayPal page. Or if you want to just do the PayPal manually, you can go ahead and put in canarycryradio@gmail.com. That is the way to get it to us. There's also patreon.com/CCNT to become a supporter there. We love you, producers, and thank you again to our monthly sustaining producers. You get all producers. It's the only way we're able to keep doing the show. And if you're a creative person, we get it. If treasure is not the way for you to support the show, that is totally fine. You can create art or create jingles or songs. That's right. People write whole songs for the show. Make sure to stick around for the Canary Cry mixtape at the end of the show. There's always some sort of dance party going on after the show there. But if you're a creative person, want to create art, make sure it's relevant to the show, or jingles or music. In all cases, you can send that to canarycryradio@gmail.com, and we will put it on the show for Friday. So thank you very much again to all of today's producers. That is producer Serial King, producer Charlie, producer Jonathan W., and of course our wonderful artists Allie and Grace. And who's doing the timestamps, or who did the timestamps? Jade something?
Jade somethingson. Hold on. Let me get
Thank you,
quick.
Jade somethingson.
Bouncerson.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, producer Jade Bouncerson, for putting in the timestamps. Remember, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, you can share the show, because we will pin the timestamps to the top of the comments, where friends and family can just jump around the show, and they don't have to quite get used to the rambling nonsense right now if they don't want to. So thank you very much, Jade Bouncerson. Let's see, what am I forgetting? I don't think anything. It's been a while since I've done this part. But another way you can support the show is by leaving ratings and reviews on whatever podcast player you use, on iTunes or Spotify or wherever. Leave a rating and a review. That's a great way for the iTunes algorithms to realize that they should be sharing the show with more people who have not heard it before. Or you can share this episode or any episode on your social media. Tag us. We'll help you signal boost that. That's a great way to help as well. And lastly, just, you got friends, you got family. They're starting to wake up that something smells fishy. And if they need a place to explore those possibilities even more, send them an episode of this show. We'll be happy to help them down the narrow path of discovering.
Where does that phrase come from? Something smells fishy. I like fish. What's wrong with fish? Jesus ate fish. What's wrong with something smelling fishy? I'd be like, oh, sweet. Time to eat.
Gonz is working on his tight 5 for when comedy clubs open back up. That was pretty good. This is good. We'll keep working on that. But share the show with a friend. And if you need any other instructions, here's what you do. You walk right up to him, you grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right, folks. Just ask Noah. All right, everybody. Gonz, we have somebody asking for the mailing address in the chat. Is that something you want to put in the chat?
I'll throw it in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. So there you go. You can also send us snail mail at this address that is going on in the chat right now. Oh, yeah. Anywho, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Remember, we will be back on Friday, December 4th. So make sure to tune in then. But until then, think outside the cage.
look at him.
Demonic power!
Science is truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Sinful generation! This is deep.
Stop this progress before it is too late!
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I wanna shake things up, shake things up. I wanna shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone! I wanna stir up some controversy. I wanna rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Fun fact, I believe it was another fun fact. Another fun fact.
Brings me back to my Screamo days.
Do pot. That's where I started.
Light up a huge blunt.
A joint.
Give everybody
Magic
mushrooms. Smoke. The CIA, I mean, lots of intelligence agencies have tested secretly dosing communities. LSD.
Psychoactive pills should be covertly administered.
Just put me on some, I don't know.
Give you a shot in the butt.
Fluoride. Oxytocin. Get a chemical hug.
I did dabble, some of that robot crack. I know what it's like.
It's a lethal recipe for disaster. You need help.
If you're a pharmacist, you need to repent.
All right, weird.
something I ain't got all day. Get on my YouTube, debates like the sun. See what's new, demonetization. Know what's this? To my surprise, I spot a big pair of googly eyes. Click on the video and turn up the sound. What is this gem that I have found? Canary, cry radio, canary, cry, news talk, canary, radio, canary, cry, news talk.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
People, I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo. I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo. You, yeah, you in my people's zoo. I'll keep the cameras on.